What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Inside Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. My favorite day of the week. It is Wednesday. You know what time it is. We got Mike Ryan in the house. We got Peter Ruiz behind the boards. A lot to talk about. We got a game here. Wake Forest recruiting is hot and heavy. Mike's got some women's basketball takes to get us to. We'll give you the picks as always. One of us has taken a slight lead in that category, so we'll talk about all that.
Semantics.
Pete,
hop in.
There he is.
Look, hey, bright eyes.
How you doing?
Doing great, man. My favorite day of the week.
Is it?
Yes, it
Do you
is.
mean-
I love
that?
I love talking wrestling.
All right.
By the way, I've been getting a lot of questions about why we're never in the same room, so hold on one second.
Oh wow, this is unexpected. Oh, there he is.
Same room. Okay. You want to get this thing going? It's lunchtime with Canes Insight. Thank you for being amenable to my schedule today, everybody. I really appreciate that. It was a long bye week. We got the stench of that last performance still on us. Everyone's still mad at Lance Guidry. Have we come around now? Or are we at the what part of the grief spectrum are we in right now? Are we starting to turn it around and have faith that, hey, this offensive coordinator wasn't that bad last year? We can get to where we need to be with this defense. I've seen some people in group chats venture to say that if this defense just gives a C+ effort, they've got a shot at a national title. And you look at the lay of the college football landscape, there isn't a dominant team this year. It'd be a real shame if Miami does not get into that tournament because their quarterback, best in the nation, their offense, best in the nation. It'd be a real shame for this defense to backslide that far in year 3 of Mario Cristobal's program.
Look, if I told you before the season we are 9-1, and the only thing standing between us and the ACC championship game is Wake Forest, Syracuse, and Southern Methodist University, anybody's taking that. So just got to take care of business in some games that you're going to be favored in. I do believe they'll be a favorite over SMU. I believe if you bet them to win ACC right now, Miami is the favorite with all 3 of the games ahead of them.
It is.
So, look, you got to take care of business, but number 1 is healthy. As long as number 1 is healthy, I like our chances. Defense is what it is. We're going to score a lot of points. Got to tighten some things up. It can't be as bad as it was last week or the last few weeks, but, you know, we got a good offense, so let's have some fun.
Well, let's talk about what happened last night where we found out that through a bye, Miami actually got better. That was cool to see. I know a lot of people inside the SEC are really mad. It's unfortunate that everybody's hustle of beating up on LSU, they take the L and yet are somehow still ranked number 14. It looks like that hustle, that well has finally dried up because Florida did that to them. The SEC is interesting, man. There's a lot of teams inside that CFP that are a lot like Miami in that where's the quality win? Now, Indiana has really cracked this whole code. In fact, I think all these conferences need to reevaluate not having divisions. We were doing tie-breaking procedures here for Miami that saw Miami potentially go undefeated in the conference. And because they didn't play Pitt, Clemson, or SMU in the regular season, might be left on the outside looking in. So something needs to be done about the way that these games are played. I don't think flex scheduling is a way to go about it, but I do think divisions can mitigate some of these issues because look, you have people out there with the take that Indiana should just bench their quarterback when they play Ohio State because that loss really won't matter. But you know what will matter? Your quarterback getting injured. There's a lot about last night's ranking drop that I'd like to dissect. I understand where the news cycle is right now. You got talking heads upset that Miami's ranked over Ole Miss and Georgia. I get the anger. Honestly, I do, especially if I make my living covering SEC football. I'm fully indoctrinated. I still think it's 2011 and they're running a monopoly over this sport. I'm not going to be able to break myself free from that school of thought. But here's what I don't get. If you want to argue that Georgia and Ole Miss should be ahead of Miami, I understand the argument. Miami has a loss. Miami doesn't have a big win. Those programs, for however we can parse it, their resume in terms of the games that they've won, more impressive than Miami. Granted, they also lost an extra game. So I think that matters for something. What I don't get, what I really truly am confused by is Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia. I'm really confused by that because how is Miami in the middle of that? Miami's either better than all three or worse than all three. To put them in the middle because Alabama beat Mercer 52-7 is a bit of a cop-out and just invites more questions than answers. But the funny thing about all of this is none of it matters. Just TCB, get to Charlotte, and then we can have another discussion because I got another hypothetical I want to bounce off you.
Well, listen, this is very bad podcasting, just like, starting the show with like 5 seconds of dead air and other things I do. I really don't care. I just really don't care.
Fair enough.
My son, I was talking to him yesterday leaving baseball practice. He knows everybody's ranking and order, and he's talking about this and that. I told him it doesn't matter. You're playing Wake Forest, a team that has been historically terrible as long as we've been alive. You were then playing Syracuse, which has been terrible pretty much since they beat us with Donovan McNabb. They've been terrible the whole way since. Actually, let me rephrase, since we beat them 59-0.
Wait, Wake Forest, how many appearances in the ACC title game since we've joined it?
They have won one. So
Yeah,
let's cool it.
But forget our status. This is what they are. They stink. Syracuse stinks. SMU, good this year. How many NFL players do they really have on SMU? I mean, they're not that good.
I leave it to my scout.
Listen,
For Short Smith, certainly.
I would say the two of the guys that left Miami are going to be big-time NFL
That's
prospects.
fine. They're big time is an overstatement.
You don't think Elijah Roberts is going to be a top 3 round type pick? Top 3?
Maybe. Is there a huge difference between him and the guys we have? No, I think Bain's better. So bottom line is, this is not Georgia. This is not Clemson when they had Trevor Lawrence and Christian Wilkins. You have a very easy path. We've been talking about the schedule all offseason. Now the schedule's 3 games. It's 3 games. You win those 3, you're in, and you're playing against teams that aren't that good. So to me, if Miami's worth anything, and they're in position, like you said, to get the first ACC championship game or championship win ever, beat 3 teams that you're way more talented than and that aren't that good. And we're good. We're number 3 in the playoff. And now we're playing a whole new ball game, which no one knows how it's going to go because it's the first one ever. So to speculate about which team's better, who knows? I mean, look, Alabama might be the best team in the country. We don't know. We don't know who the best team in the country.
They're not. I will concede that we don't know who the best team in the country is, but I don't think it's Alabama. But that's why they have this tournament to figure it out. You say win the next 3 and you're in. That is bona fide cemented fact. There is a kooky scenario here for whoever loses that ACC championship game. That might not be fair. Now, we have had assurances from the College Football Playoff Committee that a loss in a conference championship game won't hurt you all that much. Okay, so then are you meaning to tell me that Miami just needs to beat Wake Forest and Syracuse to get to the college football playoff? Because you can poke holes in Miami's resume. Say Miami does make it to Charlotte. Say that they lose to a top 10 SMU team. Ole Miss is feeling a lot better about their chances. We have the same number of losses as Miami. How are you gonna keep us out? They just lost to SMU. How about SMU? The other side of the coin is SMU loses to Miami. Let's have a hypothetical in which SMU has 2 losses on the year, one to a Big 12 champion, one to an ACC champion, 2 teams that have buys in the college football playoff. You mean to tell me they're going to put SMU in over Georgia? I don't think so. I really don't. And I would dare the College Football Committee. Now, so far, so good. They've shown with how they're ranking Miami that they're not fully bought in. They're not drinking all the Kool-Aid when it comes to the SEC. But here's another scenario for you. Using precedent, using the example that we cited with Indiana. You make it to a conference championship game. As Lane Kiffin was saying, even inside the SEC, which I don't actually think the SEC has to worry about this. I think whoever makes it to that conference championship game is going into the CFP. But what if that conference runner-up suffers an injury at quarterback? The Jordan Travis thing happens all of a sudden. So there are plenty of scenarios in which also, these are human beings inside this committee. They are all subjective to the human condition. And if you see a team get blown out by 40 in a conference championship game, that's going to affect you some way or another. So the one thing that I'm most skeptical about in regards to the CFP is the teams that make it to their conference championship game and lose that are still in position to make the CFP, like a Miami, like an SMU, because that's where that SEC bias most certainly will creep in.
It's a great point. We saw Lane Kiffin with the comments about how teams are nervous about playing in these conference championship games. Kirby Smart said the same thing. I mean, I've always hated expanded playoffs. I thought 4 was perfect. The bowls and the deterioration of bowls has really,
But hold up. Isn't this the perfect year to expand the playoff? It's a year that we have I understand the argument. Well, what was wrong with having the top 2 teams? I genuinely don't know who the best team in the nation is right now. And we're in November. Well, we might as well expand this tournament, because if they're just taking the 4 teams, I don't think we're making it. We're not making the old CFP format. I really don't think so.
We had a lot of good games that mean nothing. The Oregon-Ohio State. Does anyone really care about Oregon-Ohio State playing?
That was a great game. It was great. It was great to see that. Yes,
it's like a good Sunday night football game that you wake up the next day, you check your fantasy, you forget.
What do you mean?
About.
Does anybody care about them playing?
You see this behind me? Well, you can't see. This the wide right cover of the Miami Herald. Your boy Dan Levitard writing an article. That was a regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how Oregon-Ohio State, are they going to be picking frames of Oregon-Ohio State regular season 1 versus 2? And
maybe if one of those 2 teams ends up winning the Natty, that game, you look back on it and you thank your lucky stars that you got to see it during the regular season. That might actually be the CFP final matchup.
Forget all the fact it's a conference game, which is ridiculous. It's a Rose Bowl game. What the hell is it doing in the conference? But look, it is what it is. I accept it now. But the part of the problem of this, what I find to be a stupid playoff, is now the conference championships are going to be in question. And I think the coaches are raising legitimate concerns. They're only worried about winning. What they're saying makes a lot of sense. They've been thinking about this deeply. Do you eventually have to put a guardrail in to say, all right, the loser of the Big Ten championship and the loser of the SEC championship are automatic qualifiers unless their ranking drops below like 20? I mean, maybe that's the solution that ultimately happens. I don't think it would change much. People would complain, but these are the kind of things we're going to have to figure out as we go, because it's a new deal.
Also, the general concept of not penalizing a team that makes it to their conference championship is working under the assumption that the 2 teams that make it to their conference championship are CFP level good. That may not always be the case. Conference record is what determines, not overall ranking, not the CFP. Maybe that's the way they go about this in the future, is the conferences just use the tiebreaker as CFP rankings. I think that could also be a contributing factor to cleaning this thing up a little bit, because this year could get a hell of a lot messier. There's a lot of real wacky scenarios that would put that committee in a real bind. And I think that they need to learn from this, hope for the best, that they're not actually exposed, because there were a lot of doomsday scenarios that have popped up. There is no perfect way to do this. I am much more comfortable hearing Joel Klatt complain about who's 13 and 14 than I was for who 4, 5, and 6 are. I think that this is better. I'm pro bigger games during the regular season. Oregon, Ohio State clearly didn't do enough for you. Every week there is a game that matters. Hell, the CFP made LSU, Florida feel like a big game that mattered. I think more good games, more awesome moments is good for the sport fan. So I think that this is ultimately a really good thing. But like anything in college football, any measurement that has been around since we were born, certainly, it's not exactly infallible.
Well, I'll say what helps this format, and Pete's like just chilling out there. Pete, I'll get your thoughts on this. But what I think helps this format is parity has increased significantly since 5 years ago. So that makes something like this more palatable, because otherwise we're talking about a lot of teams that have zero chance. Now there's more parity because of NIL, things that have nothing to do with the playoff that have made it more palatable.
Right. But you know what bothers me is the only way to break people out of these preconceived notions about the SEC and Big Ten is if an ACC or Big 12 team goes on a deep run, or if one of the group of 5 schools goes on a deep run. And people are going to use confirmation bias because they're going to give more lottery tickets to those bigger conference teams. So you need one, like, to go on a Clemson type run and mow through that. You're not going to be able to prove your point that the SEC and the Big Ten aren't as good this year, because everybody is incentivized to refuse to capitulate. All of this stuff is predetermined by preseason rankings and SEC beat writers that don't want to admit that they were wrong on something. The whole thing is flimsy. It is so weighted to, and it's confusing, right, D? Because if you ask me, what's the best conference in America? SEC. Pretty easily for me, SEC. But it is somehow the best conference in America and also wildly overrated.
It's not what it was in the past as far as how dominant it is. But then you have Vanderbilt that can beat teams, which Vanderbilt used to just be a doormat. So to me, it's I'm realistic about the whole thing. I don't get too caught up in the S. They have the most pros every year. They're the best teams because they have the most pros. They had the most pros this year, I promise you. Big Ten, same thing. I don't think the ACC is that good. I think when you have a good ACC team, they're good. I think when Florida State won the championship, look at how many pros they produce. When Clemson was winning championships, look how many pros they produced. Look at the positions they were producing pros in. Look at the Miami Hurricanes, this team, on the offensive side of the ball. We have a first-round quarterback. Probably get 4 of these guys drafted on the offensive line. Get a running back drafted. Get a tight end drafted high. 3-4 receivers get drafted. And we are a great kicker. So in terms of the scoring point aspect of it, I think Miami is the best offense in the country anywhere, and the NFL stats reflect it. But if you're looking at ACC as a conference and the NFL players in the conference, there's not that many. So I'm not one of these ACC pride guys that's going to, like Danny Cannell, which I love him for putting up the fight. But SEC is better. They have better players.
Yeah,
we know it. There's an objective measure of it.
It's a weird argument that I'm making in that I will concede that they are better, but I just don't think they're that much more deserved than, say, if SMU loses the conference championship game. I think for the season that they've had, especially a scenario I concocted in which their 2 losses are to 2 bye teams, I think that's pretty unfair. Before we switch gears here, Pete, any closing thoughts on what we're discussing?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight a comment here. Another team that we haven't talked about, Tyler Franz makes the point in saying that Notre Dame is ranked above Miami with a home loss to NIU. To me, that's the one that's like, yeah, they have a couple good wins. One of them being the Texas A&M win was a good one week 1. But the other 2 ranked wins right now, I mean, I guess Louisville's not even ranked anymore, but the same, they won by a touchdown just like Miami did, except Miami did it on the road. They had Louisville at home. And then you have Navy. Obviously, you have Army this week. But they're ranked 6.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
one of the arguments, Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is they beat Georgia Tech and Miami lost to Georgia Tech. But put it in perspective. They beat Georgia Tech, not at Bobby Dodd. They beat them at Mercedes-Benz. So that's a 50-50 crowd at least for Notre Dame. And they also played a quarterback that didn't even feature against Miami. And we saw 2 quarterbacks in that game. So it wasn't the same Georgia Tech either. That is a really bad loss at home to Northern Illinois.
They're 6-5. They're 6-5.
A fledgling MAC team. That's such a bad loss.
They lost. Northern Illinois lost to Ball State, who just fired their coach. And we saw Ball State, the worst team I've ever seen.
Yep.
That's not in the FCS. The worst team I've ever seen is
I don't
Ball
think
State.
I've seen a worse team play Miami.
Never. And
Ever.
they beat Northern Illinois, who beat Notre Dame at
That's
home.
damning.
I'm curious. What do you think? Who do you think would be the favorite if Miami played Notre Dame neutral field right now?
I think Miami would be the favorite.
Yeah, I think so too.
Really?
I
feel like Notre Dame would be like a 1 or 2 point favorite.
Yeah,
I mean, betting markets usually dictate these lines.
Looking at their schedule, at least, look, they have one. I will say they have won convincingly the last 4 to 5.
No, they're a better team, no doubt.
Which
Riley Leonard was hurt at the start of the year. They know how to play with him a little bit better. They've certainly improved. Otherwise, they would have dropped another one.
I just think Vegas will go with the recency bias, I should say, in terms of like how they've looked, and then obviously Miami has kind of struggled, to get across the finish line in some of these games. But that would be an interesting one in terms of what the hypothetical line would be.
They're also sitting pretty in that they don't have a conference championship game. Look, they won't get a bye, but they won't actually have to test their mettle against one of those top tier teams or conceivably a ranked team, although that's not always how it goes. Let's switch gears and focus on Miami.
Let's do it.
Year 3, Mario Cristobal program. Defense takes a step back. Not what we hoped. Granted, the weaknesses that teams are attacking were the weaknesses that we were sounding the alarm bells off of in the preseason, but this problem's worse than any of us probably anticipated. In the last episode, we got into solutions. It sounds like, from what Coach Guidry has said in his press availabilities, that there is some form of change coming. You've got great sources, D. What do you anticipate going down defensively against Wake Forest?
It's week, 13? They just got to play better. I mean, I hate to say it. People are going to be looking at me.
So keep doing the same things? Keep doing the same things?
Well, you're not going to play Wake Forest the same way you play Georgia Tech because they're different.
That's a very kooky
teams.
Offense.
So the Georgia Tech mistakes have already been made. The failure to adjust to was effectively an option offense. It's done. It happened. It was not good. They bear the loss. The coaching staff bears the loss because a lot of that was on coaching, but it's done. So that doesn't impact what you're going to do against Wake Forest as a whole different team. Personnel wise, I don't see them having a huge youth movement. You did have some players during the bye that got more reps. Maybe you see a couple guys play more because they played more during the bye while the older players were resting, and you had more reps for younger players. Maybe a couple of them flash. Maybe you see more Bobby Pruitt with more speed, ability to go sideline to sideline and tackle. Maybe a little bit more of that, but I don't see major personnel changes. I don't see major schematic changes. I talked to a buddy of mine who was college coach, defensive coach, and asked him, like, what kind of adjustments can you make at this point in the season? He kind of laughed at him. He's like, listen, man, you just got to play better. It's week 13. You just got to play better. I wish I had a better answer for everybody. I wish there was a magic player you could pick up off the waiver wire that's going to help you.
That's disheartening. There are players coming back that can really help this team for how they're being attacked. We're supposed to be getting some players back. The Damari Brown thing is encouraging. Is there a chance he suits up here? It sounds like there is.
I wouldn't expect him this week. I think Syracuse closer ACC championship.
I always thought it was like a CFP thing. So the fact that he's making this progress,
it could be. It's like we've been through this. Pete knows how I feel about injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I was told point blank, Zion Nelson practicing, looking great. I actually saw Zion Nelson practice during the spring. I want to say he practiced,
and then he medically retired.
Retired
later. Yeah.
So injuries are tough. Fletcher, I can tell you, Fletcher, no one can, because you talk to a lot of the same people I do. No one expected Fletcher to be day one of our best offensive players. That was no one's projection.
No, there was gamesmanship regarding his status there until the very last moment.
And before, like the months before, they were not planning on that happening. Like they weren't like, okay, we're gonna have a 1-2 punch with Martinez and Fletcher, and that's gonna be how we play our year. They were thinking, all right, maybe Fletcher works in later in the season. So I don't know.
You know who I'm excited to see back? Whether I don't know if it's this week either, but Elijah Alston, man, because I think in the first 4 games of the year he was really important, and he made some impactful plays, especially as a spy. And he got banged up in that Virginia Tech game. He wasn't having his best game, but I think getting him back is probably a bigger deal than people realize. Again, I don't know if that's happening this week, but he's kind of a guy. Everyone's been talking about Damari a lot, obviously, but I think he's someone that I'm pretty excited to get back.
You make a great point, Pete. I think specific to this opponent, Alston's a more impactful player than Damari would be. This is a big D-line game. When you consider all the misdirection, all the delays, all the mesh plays, all the sweeps that Wake Forest comes at you with, they are a very patient offense. It's frustrating to be on the receiving end if that offense gets cooking. The good news is for Miami is it can be disrupted. And when it gets thrown into chaos, it very rarely is able to bounce back. If a team is on them, it's like the old Georgia Tech, Paul Johnson teams. You knew right away whether or not Miami was going to win that game. It came down to gap responsibility and being able to win your individual matchup. And I kind of see some similarities between that and this Wake Forest team. I think this is a game where the defensive line needs to answer the bell, because that performance that they had against Georgia Tech, that was not what we were advertised entering this season. And a lot of really good players, guys like Barron, guys like Bain, guys that we rate highly, project to go into the next level, project even to be first rounders. They cannot replicate the effort that they had against Georgia Tech at all again this season. It's not an option for Miami. Otherwise, this season ain't going to go the way that you're hoping.
Yeah, and you're on the interior, Pete. We talked to Cam from Wake Forest 247, and he was that episode will come later this week, but he was talking about, from Wake Forest's perspective, he was concerned about our defensive tackles, Barrow and Messidor. Will throw Moten in that mix too, because everything that Wake Forest does is centered around being able to attack that A gap. If the center, I think they rotate centers and their guards are overpowered, which doesn't sound like they're too powerful based on talking to Cam, you could really mess up what Wake's trying to do right there up the middle before you can get to the
No
ends.
teams have really attacked us like that, especially recently. They're all pushing everything out to the flats, out to the side, trying to use space.
Forcing the defensive backs to tackle and forcing the linebackers to make plays.
But Wake is also not a team like Syracuse. Syracuse passes for a lot of yards. They're certainly not a team like SMU. SMU may scout their opponent and try to take advantage of this, but these are teams that have their identity. Wake knows that they're coming into this game as a 24.5-point underdog. They'd be fools to keep attacking the A gap against Miami, something that no team has really done effectively, and not attack Miami out wide. I understand if we're just, I It would
Well, it's funny
be
because
so
that's
puzzling to me if that was a strategy for Wake Forest.
From talking to Cam Lemons again from the Wake Forest 247 side, it seems like that's pretty much all they do in terms of the running game. So that will be interesting to see how if they adjust in that sense. Debris says Mario hinted on his show today that they'll be back. That's when we were talking about these guys. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna.
That looks like misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, look, he said Jalen Rivers will be back in that USF game. He said it pretty bluntly, and he wasn't back for another couple weeks there. So I'm not taking anything Mario says in terms of injuries very seriously.
No, D, we can tell it now. Part of the Fletcher, Florida stuff was these are state secrets, and have them wondering, is he or isn't he? And you had people overthinking, do we announce him for the game? That way people think that he's not playing in the game.
That's right.
Mario likes to play these games better than anybody. So I would not believe anything Mario Cristobal says right now, because everything to him is calculated and considered a move.
And we were at practice. Fletcher was practicing full pads right before. I'm not, that time we were kind of being a little coy because it was the first game of the year. I actually don't know the answer. So it's not like sometimes I know and I can't really say. I
genuinely don't know.
I don't know.
And I know better than to ask at this point, because like I said, it's part of their game plan each week. The ambiguity surrounding the personnel is viewed as an upper hand by this administration. So you just kind of got to go with it.
Yeah. And look, if you can't beat Wake Forest with Ruben Bain and Tyler Barron, who are going to go to the NFL, you got problems. Obviously, I know our secondary is a little thin, but come on, guys. Let's people. And when I was ripping Wake Forest and Syracuse and SMU in the comments, we were like, oh, we can lose to these teams. I know we can lose to these teams. I'm nervous as hell that we're not going to take care of business and squander this chance to win an ACC championship game with a Heisman contending quarterback. I stay up at night worried about it.
Man, Cam Ward just cannot lose to Wake Forest. That's not what this season's been about.
Oh, and this is the 130th ranked pass defense in the country.
Yeah, he's got to go nuts.
I will say one thing, motivation-wise. I was told from a source that remember that graphic that had all the Heisman contenders and did not have Cam Ward? It was a little ridiculous.
It was, but it was also clearly a production mistake. They were just taking guys that
were playing that week.
That had played that week. I mean, yeah, I'm sure though I saw that. I'm like, oh, Cam's going to hate this.
I heard that message has been delivered and that, Cam did not play well against Georgia Tech. The stats showed it, but he knows he missed a ton of checkdowns. He knows he could have been a lot better. And if he's at his top form, think about everything that went wrong in Georgia Tech. And if Cam Ward just plays his A game, and again, it's unfair that he has so much on him.
Yeah, they survived.
It's not to blame him because it's not his responsibility to do all the things that the defense didn't do and that others failed to do. But if he does play a B game, the state score too much. So this offense is so good that if it operates on full capacity for the rest of the year, we're going to have a great season. Because this offense on full capacity destroys Wake, beats Syracuse, and then defeats SMU. It's too good, and it can beat you in too many ways that even a team like SMU, which has a good offense, can't slow it down, speed it up, and do all the things that this offense can do.
Yeah, now looking ahead, I want a reason to feel good. It's senior day. We're saying goodbye to 27 seniors? That's a pretty big senior class. Yeah. I guess that's also the NIL era.
Yeah, a lot of them we just got to know.
Yeah. Chase Smith going to see the field, I think. Well, hopefully there's an opportunity.
Listen, Chase Smith made a few plays this year when he got the opportunity.
He's played.
Pete, I think people are going to be genuinely shocked at where Chase Smith gets drafted. I got him as a player that gets drafted.
He looks a little. I don't know if his speed's all the way back yet,
dude.
Does he not have another year of eligibility? I'm pretty sure he might. Maybe I'm wrong there, but
how does it work with like guys that have another year of eligibility but they're seniors?
It's interesting. Sometimes you give them the.
Do you give them the pomp and circumstance?
They're listed as like a fifth-year junior or something like that, or a fourth-year junior if they're not redshirted. So like they're still in the so Sam Brown's one of those guys, to be exact, because he's listed as a fifth-year redshirt junior.
So how do I approach that? I've only got so much emotional bandwidth when I'm saying goodbye to these guys.
Are we going to be honoring them on senior day?
Am I?
I would say
like how hard do I clap?
That's a good point.
Or do I just run this back? It's kind of like bordering on Rafael Nadal. I feel like I've said goodbye to Rafa 17 times already. Yesterday was apparently like the actual goodbye, and I couldn't even get up for it. I've said goodbye to this guy so many times.
Howard Stern says this guy looks like Mario's long lost son from Hialeah, dude with the croqueta shirt.
Wow.
I'll take it.
Howard Stern's watching us. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Long
The king
lost
of media.
long lost son. Give me some credit on the age. I appreciate that. Let's do the transition then. Get the graphic ready. So you see the shirt, Croqueta County, Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in the world. You can go to croquetacani.com and get the gear. I usually wear the solid black or maybe the white fishing shirt. I decided to feel a little funky today with this tie dye, not my usual attire, but I don't know. We're feeling good. We're totally removed from the negative energy of last week. Now we are festive and excited to see the Canes play.
Are we totally removed from it?
I'm removed. I'm
I'm looking at these comments. There's a lot of
I'm locked in
negativity.
on the croquetas. You got the holiday menu, so you can, if you're getting ready for a holiday party, you can cater at Islas Canarias. Get all the croquetas you want, the best croquetas in Miami. 7 different types, depending on your level of adventure. A lot of people go with the classic ham. Some people like me go with the vegetarian option. You got the Korean kimchi croqueta. You got all kinds of different styles. You can get it at the store out west. You can order online. You can go to Islas Canarias Express in Dayland Mall, the dining pavilion. So many ways to get your Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in the world. You're still digesting that bistec from the other day.
Still, yeah, like an anaconda. I will regurgitate it in 2 weeks and then eat it again. It was that good. That's what I'm hoping for. Pete, how you doing, man? Am I not getting your reps? Like, I got to put the ball in your hands.
No, there's a lot of comments, a lot of negative comments, man.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this town needs an enema. This town needs to see this defense to do it, to put their minds at ease. This town needs to see 500 passing yards from Cam Ward. This town needs good vibes. That bye week came at a bad time for our emotions, but probably came at a really good time for this defense. But I got to tell you, I went to D Money hoping that he would tell me something that would make me feel better. I feel worse. It sounds like we're just prepared to, just get guys healthy and keep doing it. I'm like, Then I'll hold out hope for guys just not being Brent Key and Georgia Tech and attacking Miami in ways they are susceptible and designed to keep Miami's offense off the field. Thankfully, the next 2 opponents after Wake Forest, I think, are pretty married to their styles. Sounds like from the reconnaissance you gave us, Wake is pretty married to their style. So maybe there isn't another Georgia Tech situation here.
Well, and look, there's actually some optimism from Wake's side that their offense has kind of picked it up the last couple of weeks here. And looking at the numbers, like Bachmeier at quarterback's played a lot of football. He's 25 years old.
Did they have an injury in the last game?
Yes, their backup came in, but Hank Bachmeier's back.
Okay.
So he will be playing as a guy who's, again, like I said, 25 years old, played 6 year of college football, started at Boise State, then was at Louisiana Tech. So he's played a lot, and they're passing him by the numbers is not horrible. But they should take care of business in terms of being able to win this game. But it could be a little test for the defense because it's a different style of offense.
I'll just get into it real quick with Pete. By the way, check the like. I mean, look, I feel great. I have you're saying to my
a little test for the defense. It's not.
We're
it's not
playing
where we're
Wake
supposed
Forest,
to be,
folks. This roster costs tens of millions of dollars. You're the number 8 team in the country. You're playing Wake Forest. Can Wake Forest beat us? Of course. I mean, I'm not stupid to the game. We've been watching all the same ACC thrillers you have. Yes, any of these teams can beat us. But the bottom line is you're the number 8 team in the country. You're playing Wake Forest. All of your players are better than all their players. Even the ones you hate on defense are better than their players. Hit your gap, make your fits, make your tackles, play hard, and you will win by, what's the spread, 24?
Yep.
It's not that complicated.
I'm going to go out on a limb. Say
we don't
we're
need to reinvent our defense to defeat Wake Forest and to defeat Syracuse and to defeat SMU. If you need to change your whole defense to beat these teams, you got bigger problems. I
think we do have bigger problems.
Tackle, run to the ball, play hard, let your offense score 1 million points, and you will.
Well,
win.
I don't think they're changing the defense to stop this offense. I think they're changing the defense to stop any offense.
Yeah, that's my point. I do think they have bigger issues in that for most of the season we've been attacked by teams a certain way, and we haven't been able to figure it out. I think that's a bigger problem than just a Wake Forest game in a vacuum.
For sure, but it's communication issues. It's tackling. It's not playing your assignment. The fits. It's things that you can control without being any faster, without being any stronger, without being any better, and quite frankly, without being put in a different place. I'm not saying Guidry is without blame at all. I think he is he's got a lot of blame. I mean, he knows it. He'll tell you himself. But to defeat these teams with your offense being what it is, if you just control the things you can control, meaning tackling, running hard to the ball, playing your assignment, even if the scheme is not perfect, you should win these games. You're going to be favored in every single game. Just do the basics, tackle, run to the ball, and we will be fine. Now, when you play Oregon in the playoff or something like that, it's a different conversation. But these 3 games, just play sound football, tackle, run to the ball, and let Cam Ward put up 40 points, get off the field when you need to, and go home with a big win. It's not that complicated.
Pete, what do we know about this Wake Forest offensive line? Because I think this defensive line can eat. They're literally going to have to be holding some of these guys up, looking to see where this play goes, because that's how the slow mesh kind of develops. It's a little interesting that way. I think that this is actually a pretty good Kiko game. If they maintain their identity and they're just going to attack that A gap, that's keep Kiko inside the hash marks and you'll get a better Kiko.
Well, just talking to Cam Lemons, he sounds pretty optimistic about their left tackle and the matchup with Ruben Bain. That's something he said he was looking forward to seeing, but he does not seem like he had much faith in the interior offensive line. They're talking about how, and D, you mentioned how they rotate a lot there, but our guy Cam was very well versed on Miami's defensive line. And again, us as fans, we've expected probably more in terms of production from that group, but he was very concerned about that matchup inside. So I agree. They should be able to handle business there, but I think this offense puts more pressure on the linebackers and safeties, which it's funny because he was saying, and don't want to give away too much from the interview. Again, it'll come out tomorrow, but our guy Cam was saying, look, this offense is kind of puts the linebackers and safeties in purgatory. And I said, man, the linebackers and safeties have already been in purgatory for Miami this season. So that's what I'm looking at more than anything. Obviously, Kiko in space has not been great this year. I would like to see him getting downhill a little bit more.
Who has been good in space for Miami this year?
Nobody.
Yeah, I mean, look, Wesley Vissant's been okay.
Yeah, I would say he's probably the best, honestly, so far in space.
Popo, when he was healthy,
Popo,
was doing a good job. And I think we miss him a little bit. Pete, pull up the link I sent you. I want to get to one thing that I didn't get to here, which was it's November 20th. I'm not thinking in Christmas mode, but people already putting up their lights. Croquetas with Santa is this Monday.
Wow.
Pretty soon, huh? 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the play area in Dayland Mall. Get the Islas Canarias Croquetas. Have your kids play with Santa. You bring a gift for the toy drive that they're having. Then you get a gift bag yourself and do something nice for the kids that are less fortunate. So Croquetas with Santa. This crept up on me, but I'm the date, November 25th. Christmas is getting earlier and earlier every year.
Huge get.
I know Christmas for Miami Hurricanes fans is December 3rd with Mario, or December 4th? December 4th when Mario goes ahead and brings in this recruiting class. We'll be talking recruiting all week, but Croquetas with Santa on the 25th.
I'll take that vine, the recruiting vine, before we get into our picks and whatnot. Good week on vibes for Florida Gators fans. They feel really good about their quarterback. They're getting a couple flips right now. There's some positive momentum over there. I know Miami's trying to flip some commits over there. What do you make of the pretty much 180-degree turn in vibes around the University of Florida?
They got one card to play, which is the DJ Lagway card. They have no other cards. They're 5-5. They're likely to go 5-6 after this game against Ole Miss this weekend. Maybe they win. As you'll see from my picks, I don't think they will. But they got one card to play. They got a quarterback with talent. I know he's up and down. I do think the guy's really talented, Lagway. I would bet on him. I think that is a real card to play. Players are excited about it. Players are excited about playing with him. You have a ton of money left over because you didn't buy out Napier, because you've lost so many recruiting battles over the years. You got a pile of money you never used. So the idea is we got some momentum with Lagway. We're keeping Napier to keep Lagway, and then we're going to spend all this money to surround Lagway with players. It will work a little bit as far as you'll get some guys in. They're not going to be
a total
30th ranked class. FSU's done.
Total non-factor. Not even registering for some of these kids that we're chasing.
They got nothing going for them. If someone has in the comments can tell me one thing that FSU has going for them. I mean, they used to have the best looking women. I think UCF and USF have kind of put a dent in FSU in that category. I can't think of one thing at all that FSU has going for them in any form of football.
That was a decent podcast appearance for Korch. He presented well. I saw all those FSU stain accounts, bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, his pressers, I guess, are okay. I never found him to be too dynamic. Norvell.
Yeah, I it's not for me.
Yeah, so
Especially when he's not wearing that gray hoodie. All the aura is gone.
they said he's like a cult leader, but to be a cult leader, people have to follow you. And I don't know how many people are following Coach Norvell. So, I mean, like, FSU's done. They got nothing. UF is mostly done, but they have a quarterback and they have some money to spend. They'll get some young guys. Ben Hanks and Vernell Brown are two guys we really want that they have, and they're holding on tight to. They'll add a couple guys.
That collective's been pretty good at like scouting their hills to die on and saying, we will flatly not lose this kid.
The Arcs Collective or UF?
No, well, UFs. Like,
other than the major lawsuit that they're facing.
Yeah, other than that, but like no, but McCray, like they have guys that they're just like committed to, and that says if it comes to NIL, we will flatly not lose here. They have been good about that. Now they maybe have misidentified. That usually allows for someone on the other end to get picked up, but what I'm saying is, despite Miami's recent history, and it's sorted with that collective too, they have reason to feel good about when they go all in on a certain kid and hold the line. We will flatly not lose this kid. They've been tough. I'm not talking about open commitment battles. That's a horse of a different color. I'm talking about a committed kid to Florida that Miami tries to flip. Historically, when that collective says we're not going to lose this kid no matter what, they win those battles more often than not.
They'll get some guys. They're going to get, I hear what you're saying. They're going to get some targeted guys like you mentioned. They don't have enough time to fix this team because they're going to spend a lot of money, but they suck. I mean, we beat them 41-17, and it didn't even feel that close.
It's a lot of ground to make up for.
They were probably the worst team on our schedule from a competition standpoint, aside from
Ball
State, right? So they got a lot of ground to make up. Those other teams in the SEC, they're not just sitting around. They are aggressively spending on high school recruits and transfer portals. Plus, they have better players already on their team. By the way, you're about to fire all the coaches. Now you're keeping those coaches around for one player, the quarterback. But last I checked, everybody thought these guys sucked as coaches. So I don't know if they stopped sucking, but the record isn't very good, and they've been throwing 10 men on the field multiple times in their history, and they got destroyed by Miami. So I'm not that worried about UF, other than they're going to take a couple of players that we want to get. So they'll hurt us in the short term in that respect. But as far as UF becoming a player, this is a desperate play. It's the only play they have to make, so I understand why they're doing it. But are they going to catch up ground with these SEC teams? I don't think so, and I think we'll see it this weekend.
I have two things on now that we're on Florida. One, now that everyone in the media is saying how great they look, are they going to give Miami credit for winning that game, or are they going to give them any credit there? Or, and I even heard someone say, I think it was Joey Galloway, not to put words in his mouth, but he said, well, they're doing it with a backup quarterback. So because they had our boy Mertz in game one, does that mean that that's an even more impressive win? It's funny how these narratives change. The other thing I will say is Florida's D-line really dominated LSU's offensive line that has a couple big-time prospects on that line. And I thought Miami's D-line looked great against Florida's O-line. So just a couple interesting observations.
That was a big game for our guy Caleb Banks, a guy that we like and have high hopes for at the next level. I think you and I were talking during that Florida LSU game, and I think while Lagway, you have your 5-star quarterback, everyone's going to get excited. There's a lot of positive momentum there, but the main strides that they've made has certainly been defensively. I've seen the goalposts move. How you contextualize Miami's performance in week one was, man, that was a different Florida team.
But the original Kane just said only SEC teams get the benefit of week one wins.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy how the narrative shapes around that conference. But it's not like Lagway didn't play against Miami. Granted, different situation, not getting most of the reps in practice. But Lagway featured quite heavily in that game against Miami. I'm a little confused by it because that was Florida at their healthiest. That was Florida with their most raucous crowd. They're full of the most belief that they had. Nobody was overlooking that game. Both programs were saying how this might be the most important game in program history. So it's strange. What I will say, what concerns me so much about that game has nothing to do with Florida. Who would have thought? Like week one, we kept telling ourselves, man, this team's going to get better and better and better. And maybe you can find a moment here or there. Certainly you can find a half against Duke that makes you feel a little bit better. But I think the real concern for Miami is after that Florida game, I said, Miami still got their best ball ahead of themselves. And while I still want to believe that, just because that's how players develop, it's getting harder and harder to convince myself because we are further removed from that week 1 performance, D, and that's the best Miami's looked.
Yeah, with no Ruben Bain too. That was another thing. We destroyed Florida without a player that is better than any player on Florida. So that was disappointing that we didn't improve when he came back, which we all kind of projected. One guy who had a great game, and I want to highlight this. I appreciate the comment from Derek. Good show with Tyler Barron. We were recording, so I didn't realize Storm Sessions out every Wednesday. My interview with the University of Miami's official channel, Storm Sessions, interview with Tyler Barron. He's a great, great kid. I mean, I can promise you Wake Forest does not have anybody that looks like that on their roster. Guy looks exactly what you want an NFL draft pick to look like. Really smart kid, great interview, interesting kind of guy, plays guitar, a little bit of country music flair. He likes classical music before games. Interesting kind of dude. But I expect a big game from him. I think he's going to finish strong. Obviously started strong, a little bit lull here. I think he'll finish nicely, but check out Storm Sessions on the official UM channel. Appreciate everybody's support there. Like and subscribe to that. Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you want.
I'd be really discouraged if he doesn't have a big game on Saturday. I think that this game is for the D-line to finally get the message. You guys need to play like we expected you to play. There have been individual moments. The entire defensive line as a unit hasn't really cooked since that Florida game. Nope. I would say, though, revisiting the original point, you did a great job in promoting your interview with Barron, but this is hugely concerning that Miami had that type of performance against Florida and hasn't really shown throughout an entire game, played a complete game in all 3 phases that well. I mean, yeah, they did so against Ball State, but again, earlier in the season, why is this team getting worse? And I think one of the main reasons is, well, in October, teams realize that Miami is a huge weakness on defense and they're just going to attack it. So there are bigger issues than just Wake Forest defensively for this team.
Right.
Miami cannot play the game that we all want to see on offense if that defense doesn't start shortening up some of these drives for the opposing offenses.
Yeah, we didn't get the ball in that Georgia Tech game. Obviously, that was the biggest issue because every mistake Cam Ward makes gets amplified, and the offense makes. I just did some research here where you were talking about the sack issues, which are legitimate, beyond legitimate. Wake Forest, 111th in sack percentage allowed. So that means that's lower you are, the worse you are protecting the quarterback. So on their dropbacks, they allow sacks 8.81% of the time, which is not very good. So you do have the ability to sack this quarterback if you're able to get pressure. Miami's had a lot of pressure, not a lot of sacks relative to the pressure. Like you said, that needs to change starting this week.
It's got to ascend to the mean, and I'm going to hold out faith that it will. I just know that these players are too damn good to be taken like that by the likes of Cal and the likes of Georgia Tech and the likes of Virginia Tech when their season's on life support when they meet up. Now, some of these spots have been tricky. I've been in these opposing stadiums. I know the type of energy that Cal had for that game. I also know that Cal's not the same team now. That's a Cal team that went into Auburn and won. But I heard winning in the SEC on the road is so hard. Cal did it. A team that lost to FSU did it. That's another thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of terrible, bad, out-of-conference losses. This conference, the ACC, has a shot to be better than 500 on the year, head-to-head against the SEC.
USC over LSU just beat Florida's win was such a groundbreaking deal.
Georgia State beats Vanderbilt.
How about USF battling Bama?
They're
For 3.5 quarters.
A lot of
and
these things.
And,
I don't know, Jim.
Miami, obviously
Jim.
took them a half to
Jim.
figure things out against them, but they blew them out. We have an interesting comment here. The original Kane's been on this for a little bit now, but he says we keep running the play clock down to 1 D money. We can't score much on 6 or 7 drives a game. Did we run the fewest offensive plays of the season versus Georgia Tech? Feels like it. Look, as much as you have faith in the offense, you also don't want the defense to be out there all the time. And I feel like some of that might be you don't want the defense. You don't trust the defense, unfortunately.
Yeah, that you rat-a-tat-tatted 3 comments that were probably all on the whiteboard for Brent Key when he was talking to his team. That was a perfect. They had to thread the needle, as it's been described, to win that game. They did everything they needed to do to win that game. Their offensive execution hurt Miami's offense. And that was the game plan. One whole complete game plan where all 3 phases all work in the common goal of just getting you a dub when there's a massive talent deficiency. And Brent Key is a really good head coach. And honestly, LSU fans, if you grow increasingly tired of this Brian Kelly experience, I'd be worried for the rest of the nation if Key ended up getting hired by LSU.
Yeah, Key is a good young coach. Shows you the offensive line. When you start there, how much better you can get your program.
I think I saw a stat this morning that Haynes King's only been sacked one time this season.
Yeah, they were number
week
2 in the
6.
nation in
So
sack
that's
percentage
pretty
again.
crazy.
He's been out a couple of games, so it's a little funny math. But he's a really smart quarterback. And I look to that. I have my good buddy John, who's a Georgia fan. He texts me every week. Do you really think that Miami's better than Georgia? I'm like, honestly, I'd like to see it. I think you're applying a preconceived notion of a bygone era Georgia football team, and you need to worry about Georgia Tech, because if they come into that game healthy, I know they have a head coach that knows how to scheme around a talent deficiency. And they played a much better, much more talented Georgia team, at least on the offensive side of the ball last year. And that was tough. So I would not discount Georgia Tech's chances against Georgia straight up. As someone that is trying to be an ACC, SEC truther out there, that is a huge, huge game. And speaking of huge games, we got a massive docket.
Hold on, real quick, before you've brought up a lot of points that are right on target. I want to just put a bow on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wake Forest, we talk about sack percentage, they're 111th. Georgia Tech has moved up to number 1 in the country. So Georgia Tech, the best offense in terms of not allowing their quarterback to get sacked. That's a percentage of dropback. So it doesn't, even though they don't throw that much, this is a percentage-based stat. So number 1 in that stat's pretty good. So Miami really, really needs to get some sacks this week against a much weaker opponent. Cal's another one of these teams is really low. They're in the hundreds. They're right there with Wake Forest, and we couldn't sack that quarterback as consistently as we thought going into that game. So just because on paper it's a more favorable matchup doesn't mean it's going to happen. One thing that original Kane fan said, I agree with what he said as far as the idea that Georgia Tech controlling the ball, that was, like you said, exactly what Key wanted to do. It kept the offense from really running up the score.
It's exactly what he did in Dublin against FSU.
Right, even though that offense didn't need too much help.
But in retrospect, he probably should have just lined him up and played ball. But he had a top 10 FSU team that was being called the best defensive line in football by Nick Saban just hours before.
Yeah, that was a sliding doors moment that game was. But anyways, the one thing I'll disagree with the original Kane on is the running the clock down. So that's something obviously we control. That's not something that another team keeping the ball causes us to not have possessions. That's our own keeping the ball. The reason why we're doing that, or one of the reasons why we hold the ball so much, is because Cam Ward is very smart. So before the season, people were talking about Cam Ward and asking about the plays he's making in practice. And I said, the biggest difference between TVD and Cam Ward is not just the talent. Cam Ward is more talented. That gap is narrower than the gap in their brains. Cam Ward's just a lot smarter than TVD. So if you look at how TVD played, when was TVD at his best? Up and down, not thinking.
Check with me and go.
Cam Ward, the more he has time to think, the more problems he can cause for you, because he can figure out what you're doing both before the play and even during the play. That's why he holds the ball longer than any quarterback in the country. So I think talking to people who have gone against Cam Ward this year, it's what he causes. He causes a lot of problems with his talent, but really his IQ causes problems. And when you have enough time to dissect what the other team is doing pre-snap, you can make the plays that he's able to make.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, because I've seen people do that and they take the frustration out on the OC. And what I would just recommend is, as D alluded to, is you're working off an incomplete picture. You're not going to tell Cam Ward to not wait till he's comfortable when he's assessing the defense. He's a really smart player. Cost of doing business with Cam Ward. Cam Ward's going to do that. He's going to hold on to the ball a little bit too long. Sometimes he'll throw the ball across his body and have an inexplicable interception, but oftentimes he'll make you a play that could be a game winner, or he'll chest pass a ball to Lofton for a 19-yard gain. He's just that kind of player, and you have to roll with it, because right now, for Miami's offense, which is number 1 in the nation, it's their identity. It's what they've got. We've got skilled guys on the outside. We love Horton. We love the development, but these aren't, outside of Arroyo, these aren't really guys that are going to be projected day 1, potentially even day 2 draft picks.
Right.
These are all guys that are going to have to fight for their spots on NFL rosters. Your identity is Cam Ward. You do what Cam Ward is comfortable with.
Guys, we've had a lot of comments, just to kind of wrap things up on the whole Georgia Tech discussion, about how Miami left points on the field by not kicking the field goals. I just think that's such revisionist history, because Miami's been so good on 4th downs that, like, it's easy to go back. Yeah. It's very easy to go back and say hindsight's 2020. But they've been converting those fourth downs all year long. If they finish off those drives, it's probably a different ending to that game.
Offensively, couple issues that I had, no bigger issue than anything. Even Cam going for broke and not taking easy checkdowns. Biggest issue I had in that game, you can boil it down to one play. 4th and 1, and we run that cute little pass with Mark Fletcher out in the flats when no one has been able to stop you on short yardage. I think if Miami just converts that 4th down, we're talking about an undefeated Miami Hurricanes football team right now.
I agree with you. That's why I love the running game so much. There's so many less things that can go wrong on a running play. It's just a safer play because there's less variables. I think on that play, from hearing them talk about it afterwards and watching it back, I think they thought they'd get the touchdown to Lofton, but then they picked up Lofton, and then Fletcher was the check down, and the timing was not
just too cute.
Was not where it needed
just
to be.
Too cute.
But I think they thought when they called that play that was going to be a touchdown to Elijah Lofton. That's what it seemed like.
Too cute.
I agree with you.
Was it against Virginia Tech that they hit? Was that on a 4th down that they hit Arroyo up the seam for that touchdown against Virginia Tech on the play action?
Not exactly sure. I remember the ass pass to Restrepo that ended up saving the season. And thank God we had that. Otherwise, we're just the only path is Charlotte. Really, I guess in a vacuum, Miami would be eliminated though. They wouldn't have the tiebreaker on Clemson.
Who knows?
They don't. At that point, their only path to the CFP is to win the conference in Charlotte. But Miami has zero margin for error right now. If they lose a single game, Clemson's in. Clemson's done playing their ACC schedule.
So. Yeah, it was 4th down. It was 4th down when they hit Arroyo up the seam, but there was a play action. He was wide open. I think they were probably trying to hit something similar.
Kooky game.
He was out to the flat there. But.
Kooky game. Remember what we were saying after that game? Man, these things happen. You're going to have to win a couple of those if you want your season. And then we just had a month straight of having that type of game. That's not to say Miami is not a CFP team. That's not to say Miami is not a team that can put a healthy scare into the likes of Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia. I think that those games would be close. But man, it is a funny year. And I think we're all learning on the fly. We have never, ever in our adult lives have dealt with this much talent spread across more evenly than it had been in previous years. We've never had an expanded college football playoff field. There's a lot of new things. So the takes are coming in hot and heavy, and only one person's going to end up being right at the end of it. And we'll see which fan base that is at the end of the year, because we all know the SEC is going to have more lottery tickets to end up being right. That's just the nature of the beast.
And I don't know if you ask 10 people who the best team in the SEC is, how many different answers you're going to get. I don't know at all who the best team in the SEC is. I watch all the big games. I could not tell you. I mean, who's the best team in the SEC?
I think this is going to not be popular, and I think you're actually picking against them this week. I think it might be Texas A&M.
I think it's Bama.
I think
at quarterback Milroe brings a really tough dimension to stop.
I think Reed presents that same deal for Texas A&M. Throw that week 1 performance out the window. Wegman was sick. He is not their answer at quarterback. It's thank God for Notre Dame that they have that and they can hang their hat on that. That game should have been won by Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is the best team by degrees in a conference that is very even in their upper tier.
It's interesting. So you say Texas A&M, which is I like the curveball. The Texas A&M group chat that we're in is that we never deleted after that game is rolling strong. Pete's saying Alabama. Obviously, Georgia's going to get a lot of votes in that.
I think I know who you're going with.
I'm saying I don't know. I really don't know. Texas is going to get a lot of votes.
People end up. I was guilty of forgetting Texas there. We'll see. That game's going to be a real firecracker at Texas A&M.
Ole Miss is statistically the best one. If you just look at the stats, Ole Miss statistically is the best one. Now, am I ready to say they're the best team in the SEC? I'm not, but they are statistically the best one. That's 5 different teams, and Tennessee is in the mix. I think they're probably the weakest of those guys, but record-wise, they're in the mix. The irony is, I'm always banging the drum, don't spend all this money on high school kids. What's Nico getting paid? $2 million? Can you imagine if Tennessee had Cam Ward instead of Nico? Where they'd be?
That's a champion.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a champion.
They'd be one of the great teams of this era if they had Cam Ward instead of Nico. I don't think the price tags are that similar. So, 1 year versus 3, theoretically, but you can get them multiple years. Plus, freshman year, you're not going to get that much production out of the kid anyway. So, just a food for thought when we always talking about, hey, get this great 5-star quarterback and They're worth this. The most important position in football. Get a young one. He'll recruit receivers with him, all this stuff. Tennessee, take the money that Nico had. Give it to Dylan Gabriel. I don't think it's that great. They're way better with Dylan Gabriel than with Nico. I think.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Right now, that offense is hindered, and no one really wants to blame the quarterback because everyone's kind of high on him and projecting him for next level and beyond. This is the growing pains of developing that quarterback. Is they probably didn't know it, but they had a team that was national title good. And in going through those growing pains, it maybe spells better for Tennessee in the long run. That's a team that's going to be in the mix perpetually in this NIL era. They have really deep pockets. Jimmy Haslam is super involved with their NIL program. They're going to matter for however long this incarnation of college football goes on. But I think they'll look back in this year and ask themselves, what if? What if we... But you never know. You probably don't get Nico if he's not playing right away.
Oh, yeah.
But I think Tennessee is probably also undervaluing the market and not knowing that guys like Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel would be there for the pick. And so if you ask them to do it over again, you bring up a very interesting point, D. I hadn't really thought about that. They probably would. They probably regret the direction they went down.
But we don't know because, look, Bryce Underwood's going to get that kind of money out of high school. Maybe he's worth it. We don't know how that's going to play out. You know, we don't know what's going to be available in the portal market. I think it's going to be better than people think for Miami's purposes, but we'll see.
I think the portal's going to be really rocking this year. And if I were, and I would even tell this to Miami players, and even though I wouldn't want it, if I were worth anything as a college football D1 player and I had an agent and I were that agent, I'd say go into the portal.
By the way, before we get to the college picks, I want to just say one thing on the portal because we had a whole portal podcast. Did really well, man. You talk about portal movement or recruiting. Those podcasts are high. No one wants to talk about the number 8 team in the country. They just want to hear about what's next. But we talked about Mateer a little bit from Washington State, and I kind of downplayed it. I said, yes, he's going to be a name that we'll have interest in, I'm sure. But, he's jumping up a level. The style of play he has is not as easy to translate against better competition. I did a deep dive on Mateer. I asked about him, number one. Plus, I watched him. He's better than I thought. I didn't realize he was so prolific as a passer.
So I told you that'd be my number 1 pick right now.
Really?
If I had
9 yards per attempt. I was shocked. He's up there with all the top passers attempt wise. I know the competition's not as good, but man, I know he could run. I didn't realize he was so productive as a passer.
I think they're going to be shocking names in the portal. I think people are just suggesting it's going to be a crop from schools that are underperforming and guys that may be deemed too good for that school. I think you guys are overlooking the fact that there is a huge sea change coming to this sport. It looks like the NCAA is going to get exactly what they want. The elections on the local, state, federal level have gone their way in terms of being able to push this agenda. So if this is the last opportunity for guys to get theirs in a true open market, who knows if guys will be tied to their contracts and not be able to break away the way that coaches do, the way that Tommy Tuberville is fighting for, even though Tommy Tuberville left a bunch of recruits at a dinner to take a Cincinnati job under the cloak of night, then you got to enter the portal if you're looking out for you and your family. And it's going to be something that Miami's going to have to look at. They're going to be probably shocking names that test the waters in the NIL program. I think in the NIL marketplace, I think we're going to have to batten down the hatches. It's going to be a really interesting portal season.
You talk about cap. I know we're staying on this topic longer than we thought, but it's so interesting, all the changes that you're pointing out legislative wise. We don't know what's going on. But one thing I'm seeing is if we talk about a cap, and even without the cap, there's only so much money. Think back to the Colts when the Colts drafted Andrew Luck. They got rid of Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning had a Super Bowl in him. He had one of the best quarterback seasons of all time in him still. And he was, of course, the icon of the franchise. So I think what you might see, and you've already seen a little bit of it, Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard, those are the top 2 teams in the country, right, on the polls. They both got forced out by younger quarterbacks. And they are the 2 top, not the top 2 top quarterbacks, but the quarterbacks of the 2 top teams.
Kansas State actually did upgrade at quarterback too.
You say that, but I mean, Will Howard is a quarterback of the number 2 team in the nation. Dylan Gabriel, who was forced out, is the number 1 quarterback, the number 1 team quarterback. So
yeah, but I have more questions about Will Howard. Like if you took Kansas State's quarterback right now, Johnson, if you put Avery in there instead of Will Howard, I like their
and look, maybe he jumps in the portal. I mean, he's lost his offensive coordinator to Texas A&M. But the point is, when you're talking about high school quarterbacks getting paid millions of dollars. They're not necessarily going to teams that don't have a quarterback already. Usually the good teams have good quarterbacks. That's why they're good. So let's say the good team recruits a good quarterback that costs $2 million. Now you have veteran quarterbacks who are already good household names. It's how do you balance that money? You can't be paying $2 million to a backup and not promise him any snaps. It's very difficult, especially as if that cap comes into play, you really can't carry two quarterbacks like that. So what's going to be the balance between veteran quarterback with eligibility and then a young freshman that costs you $2 million? I think it might end up being much more like the NFL, where unless it's like the Atlanta Falcons, which everybody freaked out about, it's hard to have a top 10 pick quarterback and then a quarterback as a veteran that costs money on top of him.
I think what you're saying actually requires some collusion. And I just don't think that's going to happen. You're always going to have some big swing and bleep booster want to get some high schooler and pay him $10 million and have his name in the spotlight. So it's going to be, like I said, I don't think we have any idea what's coming our way here. There's still a lot of change. And let's just keep an eye to see how the NCAA's case progresses, because it might tie him out with the CFP, and that's going to be a hell of a distraction for these players and coaches to navigate. To the picks. Now, we have been treading water here on this show. We might be losing on juice, but I contend that I had a couple 2-unit plays on Kansas that gets me over the line. But right now, D-Money, you are 1 game over 500, I believe.
2 games.
2 games?
So what's the vig in our imaginaries?
You're probably down on big either way.
Okay. Looks better though.
Yeah. So all right. So but you take the 2-unit plays that I've had on Kansas the last 2 weeks. That puts me 2 units above the Mendoza line there.
Yep.
So
The
basically
Fernando Mendoza line.
basically a tie. Look, these aren't the Glengarry leads. For the Glengarry leads, you're going to have to super follow at Michael Ryan Ruiz on X. But we're doing what we can here. We're picking 4 games, and you are top dog. So why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, I was surprised to see this number with NC State. I've been watching a lot of NC State, candidly, just because
Bailey.
I want to see how Bailey looks. I wanted to get a good feel for him.
I've been watching them every week, crying into a towel, watching Concepcion come up with 3 catches.
A lot of questions on Concepcion. I'm not even asking you the questions that are in the chat because we'll let that one play out.
I'm just saying, a lot of you better be mindful. I'm keeping receipts.
We love all Hispanic
wide receivers,
players.
every single one of them.
So NC State +9 against Georgia Tech. Obviously, Georgia Tech just had the biggest win of the season for them. They're playing well. They're getting healthy. I don't love this line for a team that has not been consistent at all. Playing against NC State, which is not playing horrible. They've lost some close games. They've won some close games. They're relatively healthy. They have a young quarterback who's playing better. I could see him having a decent game here. Georgia Tech's defense is not strong. They played good against Cam Ward, but of course there were plays to be made that were not made. It's not like they were dominant in any respect. I don't like this game from a momentum standpoint. Obviously, Georgia Tech has momentum, and now they have pressure. NC State, big underdog. I'm not that much of a believer in Georgia Tech to give them 9 points here.
This would be a vintage, old school ACC boomerang result. Come back down to earth. You go the other way. How many times have we been, as Miami fans, on the bad end of a game and said, well, at least that team's good, and then the very next week that they lose?
Exactly.
I think that this line scares me away. It's right where it needs to be. I think Georgia Tech wins this game, but Georgia Tech is the type of team that goes into battle doing what they can to win. That often doesn't result in style points. They're a very tricky team to evaluate. They could turn around and lose this game because they try to win within the margins, and it comes down to execution. And if they have a muff punt, if they come up short on a 4th down conversion, if they have a fumble, that nukes their entire recipe. And you're all of a sudden looking at a team that, when it comes to talent level, you're pretty much a mirror image of. So they're a very difficult team to predict that way. That doesn't make them a bad football team. That doesn't make Miami's loss to them that much more abhorrent. That's just how this team gets down. I admire you for picking this game. I'm staying away entirely for those reasons. I am out. I think Georgia Tech ends up winning that game, but I could see this one being close.
I got to say, I salute you for using the word abhorrent, because I've only heard that word used when someone says something that they want to take back and retracts their comments as abhorrent, or they're condemning someone else for those comments abhorrent. I've never, ever heard that word used outside of that context. So I salute you and your vocabulary for using it to describe this loss at Georgia Tech.
Synonyms are my passion. Let's kick it over to me, and I'm really curious to hear your read on this game because you've had as good a read on Colorado as anyone that I know, certainly. But this is irresistible force, immovable object, because no one has a better read on these Jayhawks than I've had.
How many units are you throwing out here?
This is another 2-unit play for me. We're going to do 3 straight weeks, straight up, money line, underdog, winner. Jalen Daniels has come alive. You knew right away from that line at Provo. Lines makers knew. Jalen Daniels has figured it out. It's another name to probably keep in mind as you fantasy book potential quarterbacks entering the portal. But I think this is going to be a great game. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago when I was starting to get bullish on Kansas, I'd say Kansas was going to blow that team out. No, too much talent on Colorado. Colorado, credit to them. I had Utah last week. Utah should have covered that game. Their quarterback is related to Zach Wilson, so that tells you everything you need to know about how that game went. This is going to be tough. It may come down to who has the ball last. But that being said, I'm backing my Jayhawks here. I think the hype train is starting to ramp up for Coach Prime, rightfully so. I will capitulate. The guy has done a really great job navigating the early season. Really, in retrospect, bad loss to Nebraska. Really bad loss. They didn't have a chance in that game, but they've come around. They're a different team. There's positive momentum for Coach Prime staying in that program. They're doing some good things on recruiting. It looks like Coach Prime is finally starting to alter his approach to recruiting high school talent, at least that top line anyways. So I'm really excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be an instant classic, but I'm going to take Kansas. I'm going to keep going true to form, taking the points here too. And I would say usually I'd advise Kansas money line, just take the extra juice, but there is a chance this comes down to a 2-point conversion. Take the 2.5.
I love it. You've been all over Kansas, so I defer to you on this. I really don't have a feel for Kansas, which is why I stayed away, just because I just don't know what they're going to be and how they're going to be. So that's my reasoning. I think Colorado's playing good football. I trust Colorado a little bit in terms of I don't think it's a mirage. They're not a perfect team. I think their offense is consistently good.
Their defense has certainly made some progress, and you could say with quite a bit of authority, that's the best defense in the Big 12.
Could be, and I think they smell the championship. I mean, they're locked in mentally. There's so much distractions around this team always. Now it's okay. Take care of business, and you're right where you want to be. I think there's a sense of purpose with the team, but I don't know enough about this opponent because this opponent has been so variable over the course of the season. So your track record with Kansas is strong. 2-unit play from Mike Ryan there, pretend 2-unit play in this already pretend game that we're playing. But I like Kansas.
We're going to have to adjust the graphic next week.
All right. Tell me why you like Ole Miss. I kind of lean Ole Miss too. It's a lot of points there. In making the argument for Texas A&M, I left myself open to. You can make an argument that Ole Miss certainly is the best team in this conference. Why do you like Ole Miss at the Swamp?
First of all, before we get to Ole Miss, I like your haircut, looking good. I saw Filetta in the comments talking about your haircut. We moved the Anajar Levine logo just to let your haircut breathe on camera. Yeah. So I'm seeing the side view here on the screen.
Appreciate that.
It looks good.
His comment wasn't so nice, which is weird. I don't know where he's gone. He disappeared on me recently this week, so it's good to see you if you let that. I don't know what could have happened.
He's going through some things, man.
That's right. He sure is. Anajar Levine, you were someone you care about injured in an accident. You could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life. So the pick, Ole Miss against Florida. Ole Miss really, I've never been a huge Lane Kiffin believer because I thought his teams were a little soft. This defense has a track record at this point. They're disruptive. They cause a lot of problems. They got a lot of NFL talent. I think we've forgotten a little bit that Florida's offensive line stinks. I mean, we've forgotten how bad they are.
Do you think this is Lane Kiffin's most talented team ever?
Oh, hands down.
As a head coach, most talented team ever.
Hands down.
At all his previous stops.
By far. They got a lot of NFL draft picks on both sides of the ball.
That D-line has some guys.
But what I'm seeing here is people just forget that Florida's offensive line is so bad because they go against an LSU team, which remember, LSU has a bad defense. So we saw a bad defense against Florida's offensive line, and they didn't look so bad. But what about when Florida's offensive line plays a good defensive line with NFL players? We saw it against Miami. It looked absolutely horrible. I know they've shuffled a couple guys, but this shuffling, chairs on the Titanic, they suck. So against Ole Miss, who has the ability to take advantage of that and cause a ton of problems for Lagway, I do not like that matchup up front for UF at all. Lagway can make big plays, but Lagway is turnover prone. He threw like 3 passes right into LSU's hands that LSU couldn't capitalize on. He misfires a lot. Again, I think he's very good, but he throws a lot of balls into harm's way, either from bad decisions or because he just misfires. So against an Ole Miss defense that's opportunistic, that's going to be killing them up front, I don't like that. Same token, we have forgotten that UF's defense stinks. They stink. Their stats are still bad. They were one of the worst ever last year. They were horrible when we played them. They don't have that many good players on defense. I'm not buying any of their hype on defense. I think they stink. So when they play an Ole Miss offense that is good, that has a balanced, good offense with NFL players, a receiver, that has a great quarterback, a veteran quarterback that knows what to do, that has a running game that, is up and down, but is at least veteran and can take advantage of poor defenses. I don't like that matchup for Florida's defense. So the matchup is horrible. UF is riding high, but I just don't think they have good enough players to overcome.
This team, Ole Miss, almost made my betting card this week. I'm glad I am going to be on Ole Miss with you here. Look, Lane Kiffin had an extra week to prepare for Billy Napier. That should tell you enough. But also, you have really good vibes around Florida. They feel pretty good about their program right now. Nothing about that team tells me they can deal with that kind of success, get punched in the mouth, get sent right back down to earth. We know that from personal experience, the second things start going in a consistently good direction, the air gets let out of that venue and they'll go right back into Fire Billy and it'll get all sour. So I actually think Ole Miss wins big here.
Do we get a sad won't back down here in the third quarter?
It'll be all hotty-toddy people singing it.
Love it.
But if they don't and they shut me up, then more credence to their program and the ballsy call in retrospect to keep Billy Napier, because that means Lagway is even more legit than we're giving him credit for. Really disappointed with San Jose State last week. They had an opportunity to go up 3 scores early. They get cute, allow Boise State to get some momentum, get back in that game, and then we end up losing the cover. We should have won that game straight up. Much like the Georgia Tech Miami game where it came down to one play, essentially for me, came down to one play, which is unfortunate when we were talking about a 13.5-point spread. UNLV, not the same kind of juice that Boise has, still a good team, still back-to-back games against a good opponent for San Jose State, ascend to the mean. I'm sure they feel bad about letting that game get away from themselves. Ultimately, I just don't think UNLV is 2 scores better than San Jose State at San Jose State. So we're going with the Spartans.
San Jose State, Kansas, Service Academy. This is a classic Mike Ryan ticket.
This is I love this card. I love this board.
I only needed to add 2 teams from last week because you had Kansas and San Jose State.
If I may, like my process here, I don't like picking games early in the week. What I do is as soon as I see the lines come out, I attack the games that I know I have a real good feeling for. But there's so many things that can happen throughout a week that if I'm not betting immediately as soon as a line comes out, I'm certainly not betting midweek. So I'm making excuses here. But what I do in the midweek is if you're going to make me make a pick, I'm going to go to where I've had success. I'm going to go with the programs that I trust. I'm going to go with the spots and the disciplined teams. Discipline is what I think is paramount midweek as I'm still evaluating. Who can I live with letting me down?
Yep. Makes sense. Like coaches playing veteran players, you got to go with what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So in this one, this old Auburn pick to me is similar to NC State, which is more about the other team than the team I'm picking. So Auburn plus 2.5 against Texas A&M. People are concerned that line is crazy, right?
It's a shady line. In my opinion, this line is crazy, and it gave me pause because I was going to put Texas A&M on this card. I was like, what's going on with that line? Do I not know something?
Well, you saw me send the tweet to the Texas A&M chat where Elko was in a press conference. He's like, we're not looking ahead. We're focused on Texas. I mean, Auburn. Maybe it was a mistake. I make those mistakes all the time, as Pete knows. I've gotten every player's name wrong on every single show. But I don't know. I think there could have been a Freudian slip there. My big concern with Texas A&M is they don't have a veteran quarterback to shepherd them through this issue of looking ahead. It's a natural thing. Some teams have no problem with it. They can handle it. Some teams get bogged down. Texas A&M does not have that veteran QB to just kind of say, hey, guys, let's focus on the team we got to play. We're going on the road to a tough environment. I don't trust Texas A&M's quarterback to get you through this classic trap game against an Auburn team that has good players, 5-star, 4-star players, highly recruited players all over the place, good body types, good speed. Their quarterback play has been terrible, but all you need is one good game. So to me, this is just a classic trap game. I just don't trust Texas A&M yet to get through it.
All the things that you're saying are true. By the way, if being benched wasn't a big enough indictment on Connor Wegman, what you just outlined, he was supposed to be that. And I guess there's a lot of things not clicking for that young man right now. I've trusted Auburn in good spots before this year, and they've let me down. Auburn is a bad football team. Now, no matter what, this is going to be used as SEC propaganda, right? Texas A&M, SEC, Texas A&M falls, look ahead. Well, that's why it's hard winning in the SEC, even though Cal did it. So
Texas A&M didn't win their out of conference either.
No, it's
they lost to Notre Dame.
Yep, it's just different. I don't trust Auburn right now. Strange program. They do some good things. They're very aggressive in the talent acquisition game. We know Hugh Freeze and his reputation when it comes to getting the high school talent, but I have all sorts of question marks about his ability to scheme a winner, even in a good spot. This is a vintage spot. If this were another team in the SEC, hell, if this were even Mississippi State, I'd feel better about it. I just don't trust Auburn, having bet them in good spots. I think Texas A&M does survive this game. The line is scaring me away. Kudos to you, but that record of mine, that's 500, is littered with trusting Auburn in good spots. So best of luck to you. One of the things that I've done all season long, one of the spots that Auburn actually let me down on was good spot for Auburn, and we're fading Venables. We don't like Brent Venables, and then even Venables won that game against Auburn. I don't trust Brent Venables. Bad hire, bad head coach, toxic program when things aren't going your way. And you have Alabama coming to town with the opportunity to let you know wholeheartedly you made the wrong call. I think Alabama is a college football playoff team. Certainly, if you call them the best team in the SEC like you did, I'm not going to have much pushback. I'm just doing show, trying to not telling you what to think, asking you if you'd like to. Bama is just better than Oklahoma. Their head coach stinks. He should get fired. We're going to go with our blue chip stock in Alabama, win this game by 3 scores, and move on with our day.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Alabama is interesting. Kalen DeBoer, didn't forget how to coach, is different. There's some mistakes you're seeing that you didn't necessarily see with Nick Saban, but you're seeing the offense, the development of Jalen Milroe, which already started, but has gone to another level to where he's truly a dominant player. And it's hard to ignore what DeBoer has done with his teams over time. He did not forget how to coach. Maybe he's learning things along the way that it's an adjustment, but good coaches adjust, and they adjust by this time of year. So could Alabama be a team that just streaks into this postseason hot and goes on a run? I would not be shocked at all. They're a team I struggle to figure out, but I like your reasoning here. 13.5. I'm with it.
My reasoning here is Venables sucks. It's just a bad hire, and move on. If you want any chance inside this conference going forward, Oklahoma, take your losses right now.
Yeah,
he's got to go.
Weird eyes. To be like, to have that weird look in his face and succeed as a college football head coach. Makes
you wonder what's going on there.
Who succeeded with that weird expression that he has in college football?
In college football?
Like, there's a weird looking guy, not like their genetic, their facial features, just the way their expression is. Who's been like just like a weird looking guy that succeeded?
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. He's a weird guy.
Yeah, maybe what I'm doing is just like his entire personality, but I think he's also weird looking
guy. He looks at his eyes focus on what's there.
His eyes do not focus on what's there. That's what's weird about Jim Harbaugh for me. It's like he'll look through you.
That's probably right.
He doesn't have the crazy eyes, but it's also like one of those situations where you're waving your hand in front and trying to see what's going on there.
Locked in. You're probably right.
There's only one thing going on in his mind, and that's football.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, we close out with a head-to-head situation here. I have trusted military academies to a fault this season. I've trusted a military academy to take care of business before against Notre Dame. And, man, Navy just really let me down. And you've seen what's happened to their season. Once Horvath got hurt, they had nothing doing. Now, Army's got their quarterback who's would-be Heisman contender, really responsible for everything that they're doing on offense, but he's smart and he's healthy right now. 14.5 points, way too big for me. This is a neutral site game, as that's what Notre Dame does. They play like maybe 2 true road games all year, but it's in Yankee Stadium, I believe. This is a real good Army team. This is a team, in my opinion, that is ranked way too low in the CFP. This is a team that will undoubtedly crack that top 10, possibly, if they win this game. And it's a season ender for Notre Dame. You cannot put Notre Dame in the CFP.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. They may say it's a quality loss. It may not bump them down that much.
Oh, what? Our 2 losses were to Northern Illinois and Army? What are we talking about? No, you don't play a conference game. You're out. You're out. Sorry. You're out if you lose this game. I'm thinking about putting the town on alert. I really like this Army team. Maybe that's because I have a dynasty that Pete routinely bailing on my online dynasties. Maybe that's because I had an online dynasty with Army.
Can't hear you. The ring's getting in the way.
Yeah, asterisk. That's what that ring is
ring
shaped
is
as.
getting in the way. I can't hear you.
You know that Pete rage quit on our dynasty. He lost to our boy Firmo. He was streaming this. You could go check out what's the Twitch on Group Chat Sports.
Mentally, I was already checked out mentally.
The video's up there on Group Chat Sports. You can see Peter rage quit.
I'm committed to EAFC 25, and if anyone wants to see me there, then hit me up.
All this talk throughout an off season, we schedule everything. We have everything in place. We finally have the conference. All the bugs are worked out. Pete comes back after quitting on us for a full season. And then he comes back and he loses to New Mexico. He doesn't actually see the entire game through. He's streaming on Group Chat Sports. You can see the moment his soul leaves his body. He quits on the entire league, leaves the group chat, leaves the group chat. Just a terrible look. Bad ball out of you. I would have so much trouble falling asleep if I did that. You quit in the middle of a stream?
Yeah.
I
had things to get to, man.
Pete has quit 3 group chats that I'm in with him in the last 3 months for different reasons. Before that, he quit a 4-person group chat that was dedicated to offensive line play, the most uncontroversial group chat in my repertoire. And Pete quit. I don't even know why.
Sometimes you got to just get the tunnel vision, trying to focus on some things, trying to make sure everything's right with the website and social media. I got to keep my mind clear, man.
So this job is
distractions.
This job is getting in the way of all your other dynasties.
I'm not.
No kids, no wife.
It's like I said, gotta keep the mind clear.
You shouldn't have just rage quit. You should have at least apologized to Firmo, because that's a signature win, and that he had to play that game over again.
Who was the top recruiter in the league? It is Art Lovely at Alabama. Shout out to Coach Art Lovely.
Just a terrible look. I just wanted to hold you accountable because you made a lot of people angry. Anyways, I think 14.5 is too much. Ball control, thread the needle. This is our path to victory. Dominate the time of possession the way that we did against North Texas. Remember, that's the one time I went against a military school and Army made it impossible for North Texas to even have the ball. I anticipate that. And Notre Dame's offense, if they are put in a situation where we're cutting our possessions here in half, or maybe even more than that, do they have the firepower to be super efficient with each and every drive? I do not know. Discipline on defense. They're not going to make mistakes. Now, I said that about Navy, and then all they did in that game was make mistakes. But if you're watching this and you're an Army fan and you went to West Point, you're cut from a different cloth. And I should trust you more, and I do. 14.5, too many points.
Let's go. Okay, so, Pete, I know you've been on the sidelines today. We've been talking for an hour and a half. We haven't used you enough, so I'm going to give you an example that you're going to like.
Well, he's on my bad side. That's been what's going on here. It's just he raged.
We still never had a matchup.
And we never had a matchup, and we didn't even address it. Lambasted him. Shame on you. Bad ball. You should at least get back into the group chat and apologize.
Kiss the ring.
Kiss something else.
You're the St. Thomas 6th grade basketball kids that you coach. They're not seeing an example of resilience and stick-to-itiveness out of their leader there, Pete. So
I could have rage quit when I lost it. I could have rage quit.
Did you rage quit the St. Thomas Apostle?
No, I'm not. I'm just not coaching. So.
Okay. Anyways, so this matchup, I went to Belen. Pete went to Belen temporarily, and then when he saw
he quit.
the rigor, when he rage quit Belen,
he quit on that too. You're a quitter.
After Pete rage quit Belen,
that's a loser school. That's why I quit.
He went to Columbus. So Belen and Columbus would have many matchups. Now, Belen runs a wing T offense. For those of you who are not in the Miami Catholic school world, Belen runs a wing T offense. They practice it to perfection. A lot of the kids start in 6th grade in the same program. So discipline, unusual running offense. That's how Belen wins games. They beat Northwestern with that offense. They almost beat Central with Dalvin Cook with that offense because it is a hard offense to prepare for. And Belen drills it to perfection, well coached and disciplined. The tough matchup for Belen was always Columbus, their rival, because Columbus also well coached and disciplined, but Columbus recruits at a much higher level when it comes to bringing players in. So you might.
Well, everyone recruits, but they just have more to sell. But continue your point.
Okay. Yeah. So they recruit at a much more aggressively than Belen. So what happens is when Belen busts a long run against most teams, that might be a touchdown, but Columbus has better safety play. They're able to stop that. When Columbus busts a long run, those go for 60 instead of 16.
Where's this going, man?
Notre Dame is a disciplined, physical running team, just like Army. The difference is Notre Dame recruits.
Okay.
So you're playing a team that is exactly your same style, but you have better recruits. So the plays that go 20 go 70. And your plays that could go 70 go 20 because you don't have the speed to take it home. You don't have the consistent athleticism across the board. Plus, you're smaller as well because of the lack of recruiting. So to me, I always think of when I make my picks to this thoroughly mediocre 23-21 record, I like to think in steps. It's not just the two teams in a vacuum. It's this team wants to do this. Can the other team stop that? Or this team wants to do this. Can the other teams, prevent them from doing that? It's a matchup deal. And here with this matchup, I don't think that Army can out-physical Notre Dame. I don't think they're going to have Notre Dame guessing. Notre Dame's a pretty smart team. And then when it comes to the speed and the chunk play factor, I think Notre Dame's speed at running back and defensive back is going to limit Army's ability to make chunk plays and also increase Notre Dame's ability to make their own chunk plays. So it's just a bad matchup for an Army team, just like it was a bad matchup for a Navy team.
We'll see. This is also a Notre Dame team that lost in Northern Illinois despite all those advantages. So, and as we know, we went into that barn before in the Yankee Stadium. Hard place to play. Terrible place to play. Really difficult to come out with a dub. So those are our picks. We'll see. I'm fully anticipating 4-0 here.
By the way, while we're shouting out St. Thomas the Apostle, Pete, want to give a shout out to our buddy, Chase Alonso. He is a future recruit for the Miami Hurricanes baseball team. There you see him there showing off his stuff. He'll be down the road. You'll see him on the mound helping out Canes baseball in their rotation, maybe 10 years from now. But he's a guy's got a lot of talent, going through some health stuff on the road to recovery, tough as nails, battling back, huge Canes fans. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to the whole class there, St. Thomas the Apostle.
Mrs. Ruiz, man.
And Mrs. Ruiz. Shout out to Memory. Look at the whole crew there with Miami Baseball. Really cool thing that Miami Baseball did. But Chase, thinking of you. Good luck on the road to recovery. We know you'll be back better than ever, and you'll be celebrating a Canes ACC, possibly national championship if they're half as tough as you. So looking forward to your recovery and looking forward to you signing with the Canes in about 10 years.
That's great stuff there. Switching gears, we have a comment. Can we get another Joe Tess appearance? Hard to top that show. Brother, we had a surprise in place for today's show that would have been certainly a lot more shocking than Joe Tess's appearance. But
we got to. I think
got to follow up. I got to see if we got a text there back or something.
Oh, by the way,
like
what
that.
a transition! Hold on.
We didn't get a text.
No, we didn't get a text. Hold on, I got a transition there, Mike.
Okay.
We're transitioning to wrestling here.
All right.
I just saw that WWE just filed a trademark to Edge. Thoughts?
It's interesting.
The word Edge, also the name of a Hall of Fame.
They own it.
wrestler
Yeah.
for the
They've
WWE.
famously let some copyrights lapse, and other competing factions have taken advantage of that. Edge, huge merchant mover, especially north of the border. I wouldn't look too much into that.
We'll give your wrestler of the week hand in hand.
Okay. Well, sorry, I got really nerdy there for a second. My wrestler of the week is a longtime partner, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, Edge and Christian. Christian Cage right now is doing some of the best character work he's ever had. In fact, I'd go as far as to say this is indeed the best character work he's ever had individually. Is it rewarding? Are enough people seeing it? That is not my place to say. But what he is delivering week in and week out is highly entertaining. A true heel that gets a true heel's response. That's the sweet spot. His body's in phenomenal shape for his age. Remember, this is a guy that had to medically retired, missed the prime of his career because he was medically retired, a lot like Edge, built his body back, got clearance, and is wrestling safe, good, effective matches with great storytelling, putting people over. Keep in mind, Swerve was working with Christian Cage. He gets put on another level. Darby works with Christian Cage. He gets put on another level. Christian Cage is putting people over. He is getting himself over in the process. He presently has an opportunity whenever he sees fit to become a world champion again. I think his character work has been so good. I'd like to see him get that run. I don't really think it fits the whole world of AEW right now, but let's talk about what he did. The gonads. He was starting to pop. He was getting huge reactions, and for whatever reason, Vince McMahon did not want to give him shine, did not want to listen to the crowd. One of many examples over the last 25 years where McMahon, sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. I think with Christian Cage, he got it wrong. Christian Cage gets frustrated, jumps to TNA. Really, this is not a lateral move, TNA. They have Kurt Angle coming aboard there, but small-time promotion at the time, becomes world champion there, puts in really good work, comes back to the WWE. Vince McMahon tells the commentators to totally deadpan his return to WWE television. I don't know what problem Vince had with Christian, but Christian once again has the opportunity to leave, takes it, and goes to AEW. We did get, for a brief moment in a Royal Rumble, Edge and Christian reuniting. The shame of it was it happened inside the Thunderdome, and we didn't get to hear that pop. I would love, and I'm certainly hopeful that whenever this Christian story gets told, he'll pivot out of that, and we get one last run for, my money, the greatest tag team of all time, Edge and Christian. When you talk about getting over with the crowd, the matches they put together, it at their peak. I'm not talking about sustained run and who history will remember. They're certainly better, more famous tag teams. But at their height, they could go with anybody. They can get anything over. They were highly entertaining on the mic. The 5-second pose, the great merch items.
TLC put that on the map.
Really funny guys in front of the microphone. Just worked really well with one another. And like I said, if you haven't watched, many of you haven't, but if you haven't watched what he's doing in AEW, it's a really stark departure from that goofy stuff he was doing before. And I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he came in with Edge, who we started talking about, under the wing of Gangrel, Kane's Insight listener, huge Canes fan. He's responded to some of our tweets. Canes related. He's a big Canes fan. He's from down here in South Florida. So.
Recovering from a pretty big hip surgery. I saw that. He posted some gnarly photos.
Oof. Well, he's still going, man. It's props to him. Obviously, his understudies are doing well. The thing with Christian I always thought was funny is his name is not Christian, but yet in 2 promotions, his name is Christian. And it's not like a fancy name. You know what I mean?
No, it just fit the vampire gimmick, and he just had to keep it the entire time. He's gone by Christian. He was Christian Cage on the indies before he got signed. So it's not too much of a departure. Whenever he leaves WWE, he's known as Christian Cage, which certainly screams star more than just Christian.
Yeah. Well, but he had some great matches with Randy Orton in a very kind of probably the worst time for WWE, which is like right before the Shield and right after the Ruthless Aggression era. That was probably the worst WWE time ever. And he was pretty good in that role.
Dude, those matches went hard. That was a really sneaky good rivalry. There are always some gems from that era, and that was certainly one of them, where Vince McMahon reluctantly had to strap up Christian and then would take it away from him in like weird times. Like there would be a SmackDown. Yeah, he's not champion anymore. He and Randy traded the belt like 3 times in that feud. Strange time. This is a guy that if Vince just let the audience dictate the way, he probably would have been like that Miz to Cena for a while. He probably could have gotten himself to main event of WrestleMania. The timings just never worked out. And we didn't get to see that huge reuniting pop, which is really one of the sad, there's so many sad things that go along with wrestling and COVID. There were some bright spots. That was one of those moments that was cool when you saw it, but you knew right away, man, it sucks that this is happening in some antiseptic soundstage.
Yeah, it's like 7 million people died, but when I think back to that time, I think of the pops that were lost.
The pops that were lost.
I didn't mean sarcastic. It's true. The Mandy and Otis, that was like the best angle ever with Dolph Ziggler. Completely ruined that pop because of the COVID. Randy Orton and Edge. Speaking of those 2 guys, unbelievable feud. we lost some great angles, some great pops during that
Pops that were lost.
$7 million people dead pandemic.
That's why I quickly said wrestling.
But anyways, so my wrestler of the week. I gotta remember, who did I have? Pull up the picture.
I have it.
So my wrestler of the week
is, as we all wait to find out to see if anybody can remember.
Because I was like trying to get my kids to school and packing their lunchbox before I picked the wrestler of the week. Of course, Rob Van Dam, RVD. Rob Van Dam, saw him in ECW when he was first starting, and he was just so different with his style. Throwing the chair at people, having people catch the chair, which seems like the
Van Daminator.
But you think after a while people would knock down the chair, but they kept catching the chair and getting kicked in the face with the chair's extra impact. Never really learned how to defend that one. All you had to do was just kind of knock down the chair or catch it and maybe use it. Well, that's the trick.
But then he figured out, like, I'll just have Sabu throw the chair at people's face and then I'll kick it, and then you couldn't catch it.
It's true. It's true. So he was awesome. His match with Sabu were awesome. When their tag teams, they were great. The split-legged moonsault was so unreal. I mean, it's hard to understand now with all the crazy stuff people do how different the stuff he did looked. It was just not something you would think about. The flips into the crowd, the frog splash, which is still probably the best frog splash, I would say. Montez Ford is good.
Montez Ford is real good.
But I mean, he hasn't been in the moments that frog splash was.
No, it hasn't been.
And he's big. Rob Van Dam, people forget because he does so much flying. He's actually a big guy. He's a heavyweight. So he was awesome. He would always call himself RVD 420, because of his proclivity for smoking marijuana. I was a 7th grade private school kid at the time, not knowing anything about weed, but I thought it was cool. So my AOL screen name was my name 420. So my whole grades or junior high and high school life, everybody thought I was the biggest burnout, which I really wasn't, but I just had the 420 because I loved Rob Van Dam, So thank you, RVD.
Is that why you wore the tie-dye shirt today?
Right.
You know that you went with RVD, innovator of offense.
He did have all those kind of cool spray painted on shirts, remember?
Yeah, the spray painted gear. He had cool gear, cool move set, really stuck out in that era. Yeah, you wondered what WWE could do with such a marketable guy. Wasn't great on the promos because of the proclivity to get into the herb, I guess, a little bit. Finally had the trust of Vince McMahon and WWE behind him. A great match with John Cena at one of those one-night stands where the crowd is absolutely hostile. If Cena wins, we riot. Rob Van Dam unifies belts.
What a match.
And it was a great match, a great moment. And then news trickles in shortly thereafter that he failed the drug test, which go figure. And then they have to strip Rob Van Dam of the belt. I don't think they actually did that. I think they creatively found a way to get the belt off of him. But that was his moment. That was his launch pad into superstardom, and he blew it. And Vince never really liked him. Rob Van Dam, he keeps it real. One of the better shoot interviews out there. He gives very little Fs, and he doesn't care about burning the bridges because he'll smoke the bridges. So Rob Van Dam, real cool gimmick. Great guy to play with in wrestling video games, too.
Yeah.
Just really rewarding.
In the face.
Really fun to work with him in video games. So Rob Van Dam, one of the epitome of that ECW era. And when Paulie was not given an F about rights fees or whatnot, for me,
Pantera
Walk, best entrance music in the history of ECW.
I'm with that. That match with Cena, which was actually WWE, ECW, it was really more WWE umbrella, but it was however you want to look at it. That was one of the best matches Cena ever had. Cena, that's when I realized Cena's actually good. With the thing with the towel, where they were throwing the towel in, and then he'd throw the towel to the crowd, they threw it back in, then he'd pick it up and throw it back.
Yeah. He was in his bag.
One of the best things I've ever seen in wrestling was Cena there. Before we can get to the music, we had a question here that I thought was interesting. Kay Mills asking, just out of curiosity, are you guys friends with any of the podcast guys from Miami, Orange Bowl Boys, Kane Sport, Coach Group, etc.? And I don't know a lot of these people. I just haven't met them. But I listen to everything, love everybody, want everybody to be successful. If they want to have me on a podcast, I'm on. Roman's my boy from Orange Bowl Boys. I met the other two briefly, but Roman I'd known. He was originally with us coming on. And then, we encourage him to do more stuff because he's awesome at it. He's like an Orlovsky, and he's doing his thing over there. Dono's always good to us when we're around. Chris talked about it a couple of times. David Lake, our boy, the best.
Yeah,
awesome.
Love David Lake. I worked with Alexano for a long time. Toast and I briefly worked at the same place, but didn't really cross paths all that much. Follow all these guys on social media. It's a great community here. No beef. Rising tide lifts all boats. Let's hopefully beat Wake, beat Syracuse, and then everybody can benefit from this, no doubt.
Gabby's great. Also,
Love Gabby.
Streeter at Footballville, the man, and my guys category 6. Those are my guys. I'm on the Twitter spaces with these dudes, seeing them at almost every tailgate we've done on a road game. We're cooking the alligator over there for the UF game. So shout out to category 6. Those guys are awesome. Really just a great community. Anybody wants to
Kelvin Harris.
I don't know him, but he was great in the U. He was great for the U, and he was great on the U.
He interacts with our posts a lot.
Yeah. No, the guy is locked into the Canes. Anytime he wants to come on, we'll bring him on. I mean, it's all these guys are doing good stuff, so we want to support everybody.
Guys, Cranky Kane says this segment always reminds me. I just spent over an hour listening to 3 nerds. Listen, I'm a nerd. You can't throw me into the WWE mix there. Though.
2 nerds and a quitter.
That's right.
Maybe.
That's right.
But you still have to kiss the ring.
Now it gets extra nerdy because talking music. I think it's as bad as the wrestling is. I think the music, because of the selection and depth, takes it to another level. Of nerdiness.
No. The wrestling's the nerdiest thing that we do.
Even in 2024, it's the hottest thing in the world right now.
By a country mile.
All right. Well,
our numbers are as good as they've been, though, at this point of the show.
Wrestling sells. That's why Netflix paid $4 billion for this enterprise. So K Mills wants you to hit him with the heat. He's been waiting. You've been.
You want me to go first on the music?
K Mills wants you to hit him with the heat.
Omalay is my that's my song of the week. Afrobeat producer that decided, hey, I'm so good at making these beats, and I'm a talented musician myself. Like Pharrell, I'll just get in front of the mic and I'll get the shine. Afrobeats is something that I'm still trying to refine my skill set to. I love Afrobeats music. I know like all the top standards, but I want to get in, crate dive and get some deeper cuts. Now, Omalay is not one of the deeper cuts. He's one of the bigger names in the world of Afrobeats, but we were playing this song before the show. You can admit, vibey, fun, bouncy. Pete, I know you love Afrobeats as much as anybody on this show. This is a song that you could play your FIFA to as you think about all the times that you let your college football boys down. This song will make you feel so much better. Just vibey, and hopefully it opens up your algo and world to a whole new world of Afrobeats, because really around the pandemic, burst on the scene in a big way. They had a great all-star game halftime performance, which was basically an Afrobeat all-star collective that everybody was wondering, wow, where can I find this playlist? So if you're looking for an on-ramp, start with that one right there.
Yeah, I mean, I looked them up. From Nigeria. Nigeria's a huge country, man. That's like talk about wormholes from entertainment and music. I know they got a huge film industry as well. Mm-hmm. So that's on the list. I got to dive into some Nigerian music, man. It's like one of the top 10 biggest countries like in the world, and the culture, like all their songs and their movies kind of exist over there. It doesn't cross over. So I think you're onto something here. I know they've kind of crossed over a little bit, but I could see that being a major crossover over time with just sounds that you only hear in a FIFA game, but there's a lot more to it than what we've heard.
In terms of, certainly in this market with the reliance on drum and bass, like it really plays well. A lot of synergy between the local South Florida flavor and Afro beats. I think it's a logical way a path to go down here. So a lot of great musicians in that space. Seek them out. If you like that artist and you're on a streaming platform, they'll give you all sorts of recommendations. I have a ton of Afrobeats music on my phone, and I just I kind of set it and forget it. So my working knowledge of the names and the players and the impact superstars that are in that game is kind of flimsy compared to other genres, because I know with Afrobeats, it's kind of like classical music. I just have it off in the background. I don't have to worry about it. It's going to deliver exactly what I'm looking for. But hopefully, if you're not familiar with it, you'll listen to it on our brand new playlist that we put out for public consumption, D, and this will be there near the bottom. I know you were working all sorts of the order of the playlist is hugely important to you. You don't trust shuffle.
I personally shuffle, but I know not everybody does, and our playlist is all over the place. So I probably worked harder on this playlist than anything in my personal life, anything in my professional life. Just getting this playlist in the right order has been very important. So we're going to debut it soon on Apple Music and Spotify. I think probably you typically like to put in the work, but also sometimes you subscribe to convenience. Say I want to get some orange slides or a hot new quarter zip for the
cooler temperatures, winter wear. Hey, I'm trying to get to Charlotte here. It's going to be a little nippy in the air. Where should I go?
You know, it's funny. I feel like I've been working real hard on the segs every day, working hard on these making these segs natural. I feel you watch them and you say, you know what? I'm a radio professional, 20 years. I gotta make sure people know who the seg champion is.
No. What is honestly happening there is you're so good at remembering. I don't have like a run of show. We just turn on the mics and go here.
Yep.
You probably have a list of our partners who we value immensely to allow us to do specifically this show on Wednesdays. And anytime I do the inventory, I'm like, we got some benchmark partners we got to take care of. Orange slides, hit me.
Well, not just the orange slides. So first of all, you go to the store, you get everything for 20% or first item, 20% off using promo code INSIDE20. But we got another thing for you. Holiday photos with Sebastian. That is November 24th, Sunday. Same thing with Croquetas. Christmas is creeping up. Get your photos in now with your kids. They don't know when Christmas is. They're too little. Get your photos in now before there's a crazy rush. You can get your croquetas with Santa on the 25th, Sunday the 24th, 2 to 4 p.m. Get a free photo with any purchase. And this is not just any Santa. This is holiday photos with Sebastian wearing the Santa costume at the Miami Hurricane Team store, MiamiHTS.com. If you can't make it, you can buy stuff online there. Same promo code INSIDE20. But if you're local, right there next to campus, right next to the Thesis Hotel, South Dixie Highway. Holiday photos with Sebastian the Ibis, dressed like Santa. Sunday, November 24th. That's this Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. Free photo with any purchase.
What's your song of the week?
Song of the week, I'm going with, listen, you know how we get down. You keep us in the 21st century, sometimes even in like the month of the release. I like to live more in the 20th century when it comes to the music. So I'm taking it back to 1960s with Chuck Jackson. I Wake Up Crying. Now, a couple of things with this one. I chose Chuck Jackson because he's born in Winston-Salem. We're playing Wake Forest. Okay. I like that challenge of trying to find people within the area.
When you first sent this in the group chat, I thought you still hadn't gotten over the Georgia Tech loss.
You know what? I'm zen about it. Once Pittsburgh lost and we controlled our own destiny, I was back to zen. But this particular song, again, he's from Winston-Salem. Good singer. Does a great job on this song. Kind of your classic soul singer of this era. Solid. What I really love about this song is this is a Burt Bacharach production. And when Burt Bacharach gets into the soul era,
you're such a Burt Bacharach guy.
I don't think people understand. Pete, what do you know about Burt Bacharach?
Just keep going.
So for those who don't know, a lot of people associate Burt Bacharach with Austin Powers, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Burt Bacharach playing the piano on the little bus.
It's getting to the point that I associate him with you now. I
just don't understand why this guy should be on Mount Rushmore. Burt Bacharach was on Burt Bacharach Productions. Check the liner notes if you guys still have CDs, or you can use Google.
Check the liner notes, Pete.
Burt Bacharach is on the debut album, meaning he has songwriting production credits on the debut albums of The Beatles, Notorious B.I.G., Kanye West, Jay-Z. Look at all their debut albums, and you will see Burt Bacharach. Dude, look at Elvis Presley's best album.
They're just sampling. You're making him seem like he's in the lab, like smoking a doob with Kanye, and like getting with one headphone on. Just like, no, I get the snare right.
It's funny you say that. Do you remember when Dr. Dre performed at the Super Bowl? What caught your attention from that performance?
The live aspect. Well, first off, 50 Cent hanging upside down.
Kind of fat, right?
Thinking, look, man, it's been 20 years. This wasn't I'm as good as I once was. No, that wasn't one of those situations there. Playing the music live, I think, on the keys.
Burt Bacharach taught Dr. Dre how to play piano. Mm-hmm. They were neighbors in California. Burt Bacharach sat down with Dr. Dre and taught him how to play piano, which you saw in that performance. That's how deep this man's influence gets. Beatles' debut album, Bacharach song. Elvis Presley's best album from Memphis, Bacharach song. He's everywhere. Some of the best songs of all time. Have you guys seen the movie you ever seen My Best Friend's Wedding?
Yeah, of course.
That whole soundtrack is Bacharach.
You're never gonna be Jello.
The whole soundtrack of that movie is Bacharach. Say a Little Prayer, Aretha Franklin's classic song. That's Bacharach.
You're making a hell of a case right now.
All the Dusty Springfield songs, Bacharach.
Pete, are you hearing it? He's like cooking with gas right now.
What's the best White Stripes album? You love Jack White.
Elephant.
What's number 4 on Elephant?
What's the number 4 track on Elephant?
Track number 4. I'm still in my CD mode, so I remember what.
Dude, number. I don't remember that. Was it
I just don't know.
Black math.
I just don't know what to do
with myself.
Bah, bah. Bacharach.
Really?
Of course. Of course.
Well,
so that's White Stripes album. Bacharach is there in a prominent role. This guy's style, what made Bacharach so good is that he was a classically trained musician, avant-garde in many respects. He liked Brazilian bossa nova. He liked different flavors. The songs would speed up. They'd slow down. They'd have different chord changes. There were unusual chords.
Pete has his car keys in his hand right now.
But he put it together.
No, that's a lie.
He put it together in such a way that it was pop perfection, despite being so musically unusual. That's Bacharach. That's the secret.
I'm gonna listen to his essentials on Apple Music as soon as I
got
out
two
here.
playlists. I'll send you. I got ladies and
Are they
gentlemen
in the right order though?
I got ladies and gentlemen Burt Bacharach.
Stay on Apple
which
Music.
Is the classic
I can't
Burt
lose
Bacharach.
you to Spotify, bro.
No,
you gotta say.
Well, I have two playlists for you. I have ladies and gentlemen Burt Bacharach, which is just all the classic Bacharach compositions. Sometimes the same song by 3 different artists. Then I also have Black Bacharach, which is only black artists covering Bacharach, which is a whole different genre.
Wait, what is that playlist called?
Black Bacharach.
Why didn't you go Burt Bacharach?
Same sonic, same.
I mean, I feel like it was
sounds.
I
just
feel like it was
order. Black
like
Bacharach.
No, Burt Bacharach.
Blah 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 blah. That's too much. Black Bacharach.
It's actually more, you're slipping up more on the way that you did it.
Black Bacharach. So on Black Bacharach, which I should
Burt
also
Bacharach.
share, one of my most. You guys know Poison Clan, JT Money. You familiar with JT Money?
Yeah, of course. I went to a Dolphin game around the year 2002.
Bacharach. One of the Bacharach is on Poison Clan's. Let me pull up Poison Clan's best album.
You should rename it Burt Bacharach.
What's this? What's the one? This one here where they're on the cover. Low Life Mothers. Is that the name of the album? I remember the album. I recognize the album cover.
I was not anticipating you to ask me what's track 4 on Elephant. I'm like, geez, you would have thought I was a 13-year-old girl wearing a vintage shirt around him. Name 3 songs.
I'm a CD guy. I'm a CD guy. You know what I mean? So I stay
vinyl, judging by some of your songs.
Gramophone.
Anyways, so Bert's all over Poison Clan. Isaac Hayes, who's my 2 favorite musicians as far as composers. Isaac Hayes, Bacharach. Tight, very tight. The cover of my Bacharach, Black Bacharach playlist is
Quincy
Burt
Jones
Bacharach sitting with too jazzy for me. No, Isaac Hayes.
I got in a fight with my dad because we were watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, and he just went on and on droning about Quincy Jones. I'm like, you know what, Dad? Quincy Jones properly rated. I think he got all the flowers. I think he got all the flowers.
Got a lot of love. Thriller, great. Not for me. I respect it. Too jazzy for me. Hayes is just classic soul.
There's also Austin Powers Stein with Quincy Jones, though.
What's that?
The song.
That's him?
Yeah.
Huh.
The only Hayes I recognize is Fawcett.
Well, Isaac Hayes, you recognize because you've recognized it's on all the classic songs. Walk On By, which I use for
you've used him on the preseason shows.
Can I Live? Can I Live?
Shaft.
Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt album, his debut album. That is Isaac Hayes playing Bacharach.
He was also Chef on South Park. Yep. He had a song on that. Do you remember what track number Chocolate Salty Balls was on?
I did not have that CD. But anyways, we got a lot of.
Who is your artist? What is?
Oh, it's Chuck Jackson.
All right.
A Bacharach from Winston-Salem. A Bacharach
I wake up crying. Every morning I wake up crying.
But if you listen to that song, it's not your classic soul. It's got a little bit of a twist to it, which is the Bacharach style. The chord changes. It speeds up. It speeds that. Look, I say a little prayer for you. And then it slows down. It goes fast.
Where was
Walk
this?
On By.
Where was this song for me in 2019? It was quite literally my every morning routine.
Which one? Say a little prayer?
Just waking up crying.
We're waking up with a smile on our face with colorful shirts from CroquetaCounty.com with a new haircut, a new attitude, no complaints about the lighting.
Yeah, you did better today. Pete, for as big of a quitter as he is, he didn't take no for an answer when it came to making sure our setup was good today. And I've just resigned myself to the lighting being crap.
By the way, look at this. K Mill saying, you guys ever do a call-in show? Maybe we should do that.
I don't trust our audience.
You kind of changed the game for people.
I don't know if
you were part of the death of the call-in show.
I am kind of proud of that.
Let's bring it back.
Maybe
kill it, you bring it back.
I think like pre-recorded calls maybe, and we select, the good ones.
Bring it Bacharach.
Bring it Bacharach. Go Canes.
Maybe we do that for
like and subscribe.
Maybe we do that for the next like if we make it to Charlotte, I was thinking like, do we do like another hurricane type of thing?
Now we're talking.
And maybe we take like audience participation.
We're going, just so you guys know, signing day's coming up. Me and Peter are going to be going like 12 hours straight, pissing in cups.
I'm going to do that.
I got a text.
I got to ask for that day off.
Champy Seafood during the show said he'll be dropping off a load to us mid-show. So
he's going to drop a what to us mid-show?
drop a load of crabs.
I don't know what chat you're in there right there, but he's going to leave that one soon.
I don't know what chat you're in.
He's going to drop a load of crabs on me.
Yeah, that doesn't even sound any better. Go Canes.
True.